Hey, good afternoon, everybody. 6 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock. Time for another edition of The Drive on this Monday, September 11th, 2023. That's right. It is 22 years ago that we all experienced the events of 9/11. And it's an emotional time for me because I was in Washington and did have the ability to cover certain elements of that story. And I'll share those experiences in the 5 o'clock hour. People always ask me, tell me the story of where you were on 9/11. And I honestly, there were many people who had it far worse than I as a reporter, those who covered the Twin Towers in New York, etc. But I do have an element of that story that I'd like to share with you, and we'll talk about that. And we, this is a day we really should remember everyone who died on Flight 11 that hit the North Tower, Flight 175 who hit the South Tower, Flight 93 that went down in Shanksville, Flight 77 that struck the Pentagon, the people who died in the Twin Towers, the people who died inside the Pentagon. I mean, and you know what? I'm going to tell you a story here in a moment that says that more people have died from working on Ground Zero and et cetera, of complications from working at that scene or being on the scene that day than we actually lost on that one day. So it's really, the death toll continues. It's really tragic. And we should stop and remember, and we should pause for one of the worst days in American history. I mean, it compares with 1941 and the attack against Pearl Harbor. This was an attack on the mainland, and it was carried out, we should remember, by about a dozen guys carrying box cutters. Astonishing. We immediately after 9/11, we did a lot of things to improve security around airports. I know Washington, D.C., when I was there, changed completely. After 9/11, it was a more wide open town. You had access, and then all of a sudden that access ended. Concrete barriers put everywhere, and our lives changed so dramatically after 9/11. But in the intervening 22 years, you'd have to stop and say, maybe we have forgotten the lessons of 9/11. And while it's important to look back and remember as we have on this day, I want to take a few minutes to learn the lessons and remember the lessons and look forward. Because I think, as they say, if you do not learn the mistakes of history, you are doomed to repeat them. And it seems like we are headed down that path. We have completely forgotten the lessons of 9/11, it would seem, if one looks around and sees what's happening on our southern border. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, there were about 1.6 million people who have entered the United States having and these are the ones we know about. These are called the gotaways, the people who crossed the border and never came in contact with law enforcement. And the main reason was they didn't want to come in contact with law enforcement. They wanted to come in. Most people coming across the border, in the Biden policies, they want to be contacted they want to go and meet the Border Patrol, and they want to get that little piece of paper, and they want to be sent on into America, and so they seek out the Border Patrol. But it's the 1.6 million gotaways that concern me. We don't know anything about them. And even if you assume that the Border Patrol and ICE and our government has done a great job of vetting all the people who came through and had contact with law enforcement, and I don't buy that premise. I don't think they have done a very thorough job at all because they've just been overwhelmed. But let's talk about that 1.6 million. Out of that 1.6 million, there have got to be people who do not have our best interest at stake. We know that, other countries, Russians, the Chinese, there have been Africans who've come across. I mean, I think almost every country in the world has had somebody come across that border. And we don't know anything about them. We don't know who they are. We don't know what their intentions are. But out of 1.6 million, I think there's a fairly good chance that someone who came across that border is going to strike out sooner or later. I read a story here that says that Ron DeSantis, who joined the military after 9/11 and did his time, was putting a spotlight on the current problems surrounding illegal immigration. And the Republican presidential candidate told the Washington Examiner that he believes the border crisis has made us vulnerable to a terrorist attack. I think there's a good bet that somebody that's come across the southern border will commit an act of terrorism. He noted that people from countries across the globe have been apprehended at the U.S.-Mexico border. 9/11 was in part an immigration issue. A lot of these guys should not have been in the country, had overstayed visas and whatnot. And now we have 1.6 million people who've evaporated into the fabric of America, and we don't know squat about them. I find myself in agreement with Governor DeSantis. I think there is a good bet that somebody that comes across the southern border will commit an act of terrorism against our country. And it is just a ticking time bomb. And the Biden administration is fully responsible for this. I don't want this to happen. But, I think the odds are fairly high that it will. And so as we take this day, and a lot of people are looking back, and the bells have been tolling, and the pictures are so gut-wrenching of people who lost loved ones on 9/11. I think we have to start thinking anew about this, and refresh our memory about what happened and what the lessons were, and how we are completely ignoring those lessons right now on our southern border. And by the way, not just our southern border, also our northern border. Listen to this. I've got this story here. The Department of Homeland Security has limited ability to accurately track migrants post-release. And they talk about that. Oh, here it is. This is the story about the northern border. While the public focuses on illegal immigration at the southern border, U.S. Customs and Border Patrol agents are encountering a record number of illegal entrants at the northern border with Canada. And that includes some on the terrorist watch list, sparking outcry from congressional Republicans and local officials after more than 150,000 migrants have attempted to enter the U.S. through its northern border so far this fiscal year. See, we're so focused now and sent all of our resources down south to process people and let them in that we have left our northern border unprotected. The number of immigrants who have entered the U.S. northern border so far this fiscal year, which spans from October 22 through September 23, is more than 4.6 times higher than the number that entered in fiscal year 2020. The last year Donald Trump was in office. Additionally, agents recorded 375 encounters at the northern border with people on the terrorist screening data set, also known as the terrorist watch list so far this year. 375 that were on the terrorist watch list coming through not the southern border, but the northern border. Right there's a problem. Nearly half of all 2023 northern encounters occurred on New York's border, despite the fact that the state only makes up about 8% of the U.S. land border with Canada. Joe Biden, says Elise Stefanik, Joe Biden's far-left open border policies have caused our northern border to set an unprecedented and historic surge in illegal immigration. And it's enough is enough, she says. All right, so 150,000. 375 of them are on the terrorist watch list on the northern border. 1.6 million people. We've had thousands of people that have come in contact with the Border Patrol who are on the terrorist watch list, but there's that 1.6 million that got across with no contact with police, no contact with law enforcement. And I'm terrified. As somebody who remembers 9/11 very vividly because of where I was that day, I'm terrified that we're making the same mistakes again, that we haven't learned the lessons. And all I can say is, God forbid that we have another terrorist attack against this country. But if it happens, there's going to be a finger that points in only one direction: Joseph Biden. He is fully well responsible for the risk that he has put this nation at. I am, DHS, by the way, this story, DHS has limited ability to accurately track migrants post-release. So they let them into the country, they give them a piece of paper, and we don't know where they are. We don't know. We may know some of them. We may know their name. We may have had some contact with them. There may be a form filled out somewhere, but we don't know where they are right now. And we don't truly take the time to vet these people. The Department of Homeland Security has limited ability to accurately and effectively track the address of migrants after they cross U.S. borders and are released into this country. U.S. Border Patrol cannot always obtain and does not always record migrant addresses. And U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement does not always validate migrant addresses prior to migrant release into the United States. The office said it arrived at such a conclusion based on a review of 981,000 migrant records documented by the U.S. Border Patrol from March 21 through August 22. What are we doing? How are we allowing this to happen? Where is the hue and cry? Where is the outrage? Oh, we're feeling it, for people like, the mayor of New York City, who says that the migrants that are moving there are destroying his city. I'm worried about the migrants that are coming into this country who want to destroy this country. So as we stop for a moment, as we well should, and look back on the events of 9/11, it's important to remember those lessons. It's important to honor those who died that day and those who have died since because of their connection to the 9/11 cleanup, the 9/11 rescues. I mean, all of that. It's very important to remember that, and really we should remember that every day. But looking backwards, while it has its merits, should not replace that we look forward to make sure it doesn't happen again. Over the course of this hour, a little bit later in the 5 o'clock hour, I'll talk about my day. Many people have asked me about what happened to me that day. Where was I? And I did cover elements of the story, and I'll share that with you at about 5:25 or so if you want to swing back by if you have to leave. But I think the focus of today, while it's important to look back, is always remember that we must apply those lessons to the future. And sadly, in this country right now, we're just not doing that. We are at risk because of the policies of our president. And let me just leave you with one other thought. In a little bit, maybe the next hour, I will show you what happened when our president was in Vietnam on a foreign trip. And then I'm going to ask you, do you believe this man is capable of rising to the threat should there be one? I decidedly do not think they can. And I'm worried. I am deeply worried for our country. 20 minutes now past the hour. Hey, you got an air conditioning problem, you got a problem with your plumbing, you need to call the folks over at Busy Bee HVAC and Plumbing. You're not going to, by the way, if you get to the point where something needs to be replaced, you're never going to find a better value than you will at Busy Bee. Listen, you want to sign up, I really mean it, it's a good deal, to be a member of the Beehive Club for as little as $99. You'll get 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems. One at the beginning of heating, one at the beginning of cooling, and around that time, and one aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges, 24/7, 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner, so for satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. You remember the number, 775-7833. That's 615-775-7833, online at busybhvac.com.
A new COVID-19 vaccine, a national blood shortage, plus an update on the death toll after an earthquake in Morocco. That and more 3:30 right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 25 minutes past the hour. Mac Morey in the newsroom, Chris Webber in the control room. I am your friend and radio buddy coming to you from bucolic Watertown. And we've been talking a lot about 9/11, and we will pick up that conversation a little bit later in the show. But there's a lot of things that I want to talk about. And, we have talked on this show about how America is not ready to have electric vehicles. And I found this story in the Daily Wire, and it's really something. Jennifer Granholm, I call her the energy elf. She looks elfin. I don't know. But she's the energy secretary. And so she decides that she's going to show everybody, hey, just how great electric vehicles are, as she takes a journey in a fleet of electric vehicles from Charlotte, North Carolina to Memphis, Tennessee. There were town hall events along the way. The purpose of the trip was, according to the Daily Wire, to draw attention to the billions of dollars the White House is pouring into green energy and clean cars. But reporters who were along for the ride, it was an NPR reporter, by the way, shared how the 4-day venture was not a smooth ride all the way through. Between stops, Granholm's entourage at times had to grapple with the limitations of the present, like where her caravan of EVs, including a luxury Cadillac Lyriq and a hefty Ford F-150 and an affordable boat electric utility vehicle, they were planning to fast charge in Grovetown, a suburb of Augusta, Georgia. Now, the advance team got there ahead of the electric vehicles arriving. They were driving gas cars, by the way, to get there ahead of the electric vehicles. And they get there and they realize they're not going to be enough plugs to go around. We can't charge those cars in the caravan. One of the station's 4 chargers was broken, and we hear that a lot, that that the electric charging stations are often broken. Others were occupied. So an energy department staffer tried parking a non-electric vehicle by one of the working chargers to block it, to reserve the spot for the approaching Secretary of Energy, and that did not go down well, a regular gas-powered car blocking the only free spot that had a charger. In fact, a family that was boxed out on the sweltering day with a baby in the vehicle was so upset, they called police. Well, they called the sheriff's office. Sheriff's office couldn't do anything. It's not illegal for a non-EV to claim a charging spot in Georgia. Energy department staff scrambled to smooth over the situation, including sending other vehicles to slower charges until they were frustrated, until both the frustrated family and the secretary had enough room to charge. It drew some mockery on social media. Scott Lincombe, I believe it is, the vice president of the Libertarian Cato Institute, shared a screenshot of the passage about the struggles experienced by Granholm's crew and said it was like a scene out of Veep. Secretary of Energy boots family with a baby so they can use their EV charger. And they go on to say, Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution, no title of nobility shall be granted by the United States. She is just like you and me. When it comes to these kinds of things, she's nobody's special. She's a citizen of the United States. And it just amazes me that as we look at this, every time we hear a story about the electric cars and how we're going to test them out. I mean, the CEO of Ford had the same problem when he tried to drive from somewhere in California to Las Vegas. Had the same exact problem. We're not ready for electric cars. And this trip by the energy secretary that was supposed to be a boon to talk about how great they are turned out being something that everybody's mocking instead. Electric cars may be good for some people, but they shouldn't be shoved down our throat. And that's exactly what the energy elf and the president of the United States are doing. They're shoving this down our throats before we're ready, before the system is complete. And at the end of the day, they're trying to shove a product down the throats of the American people that the American people are saying in a rather forceful way, we really don't want one. Electric vehicles, it's interesting that a lot of the automakers, including Ford, are now rethinking their EV strategy. But as long as the Biden administration is in power, they will be shoving the electric vehicles down our throats before we are ready. 30 minutes now, past the hour.
"30 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 88 degrees in Music City. Got a chance of thunderstorms tonight. The rest of the week, though, looking sunny with clear skies. Traffic and the weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Get ready for a new and improved COVID-19 vaccine that is due to arrive as early as next week. Andy Field says the new shots are not just another booster.
The FDA has okayed the latest COVID vaccine, which is not only a booster for earlier variants, but covers everything including the latest virus mutation. The CDC must still sign off, but government health officials are recommending the protection for anyone 5 or older, as well as for previously vaccinated younger children. The FDA predicts COVID vaccines may need to be adjusted each year as new variants arrive.
And the American Red Cross on blood donations, they say that they fell last month by 30,000 short of their target. It's now contributed to a national blood shortage. And in Morocco, the death toll in last week's devastating earthquake there climbing as rescue crews reach remote communities in the Atlas Mountains near the quake's epicenter. Itisam Food reports from Morocco.
Trucks filled the roads going from Marrakesh to hard-to-reach villages in Morocco as rescuers reached the epicenter of the earthquake for the first time. Ambulances driving patients to hospitals, but also funeral trucks. Mansour's family lived in Amskarjen, a town that has yet to be reached by rescuers. He lost several family members in the quake.
My uncle, his wife, and wife to my grandfather, and the son of my uncle.
This is the country's deadliest quake in more than 6 decades.
And that is the latest news, weather, and traffic next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Let me talk about Rhino Shield. If you're thinking about painting your home or your place of work, don't paint it. I mean, paint. I'll tell you, paint it. It'll look good for a little while, and then it'll do what paint does. It'll start to crack. It'll start to peel. It'll start to chip away, and it won't be very long before you need to paint again. But if you call the folks at Rhino Shield, you wouldn't have to think about painting your house for another 25 years, a full quarter century. You see, Rhino Shield it's not paint. It's 10 times thicker than paint. It's infused with special 3M ingredients, billions of microspheres that allow the coating to expand and contract. And that's why they offer a 25-year warranty against cracking, chipping, and peeling. Now, Clay Morris and the folks over at Rhino Shield of Nashville have a great reputation, and they care deeply about doing quality work. Jones said the work was outstanding. The quality was top of the line. Amanda wrote, "My home turned out beautifully. They showed up on time. The crew was professional and courteous. And my friends, the Garretts, had their 100-year-old farm home repainted, and they were thrilled. So much so that they've lined them up for a couple more projects." Sound like something you'd be interested in? Give Clay Morris a call at 615-474-1729. Learn more at rhinoshieldnashville.com. It's 37 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I want to, if I could engage my colleagues here in a colloquy. All I need to say, Mac Maury, is I really got a kick out of the Titans game.
Hey, boom.
Wow.
Nice.
What
So many
was
field
that?
goals. Oh,
What was that?
a travesty for an opening day. Oh, we were all so excited, and then you can't even get it in the end zone, man.
I mean to tell you, 5 field goals. I mean,
Oof.
the kicker, he's awesome. He's tremendous.
Got a kicker. That's
I
the
mean,
positive note.
So
good news,
tell
yeah.
me, as I observe it, and I'm no real expert on football, but I watched the game just like everybody else, and I got an opinion. I looked at it and I said, you know what? The defensive line looks really good.
Oh, yeah.
The secondary still needs some work. Defensive secondary, but they could not get any offense. I mean, you got Derrick Henry, and he's just a horse. He's just a beast. He just continues to deliver. But you've got to have a quarterback who can connect and put it in the end zone. And it just seemed like, I mean, they could not get any offense going. What did you see? You have a more practiced eye and a greater knowledge than I, Mac Maury. What was your sense of it?
Well, the way I look at it is if you told Titans fans, hey, you're going to allow 16 points today, you go, okay, great. We'll score 17. This offense can do that. Tannehill, Derrick Henry, you just got a top 10 wide receiver in DeAndre Hopkins, a second-year wide receiver that you drafted in Treylon Burks. These are some athletes. These are some guys, a new offensive coordinator. And that's the positive thing I'd take away from it for fans who are in doomsday mode. Just know that Tannehill, that was maybe the worst game he's ever played in his career. And there were guys open. That was the problem last year. There weren't any guys open. That's at least something to look forward to and go, okay, Tannehill usually doesn't miss those throws.
Well, is it because he's under pressure? Because it didn't
Oh,
seem
man.
that way to me.
I mean, part of it is that the O-line was horrid yesterday. But, yeah, part of it, I mean, Tannehill could not hit the broad side of the barn yesterday. It was really bad. So you got to think, okay, that's an anomaly. Tannehill usually is more accurate quarterback than that. At least these guys are open because last year guys weren't even open. So
Right.
we'll see, man.
So you're gonna say the glass is half full.
I'm gonna say the glass is half full. That's a solid Saints team, and
Yeah, it was.
And
Yeah.
Titans made a lot of mistakes, more mistakes than the Saints did, and still had a chance till the very end. I will say, though, these next 3 games for the Tennessee Titans, you got the Chargers, the Browns, and the Bengals. Those are 3 really, really good teams with physical defenses. So this offense, the tests aren't going to go away for Ryan Tannehill in the offense.
Yeah. And your Bulldogs did okay, I noticed.
Oh, yeah.
Way to
Yeah,
go,
no
Weber.
problem. I mean, it's not one of those games that was ever in question.
Yeah.
I mean, it's early in the season.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they looked good. Vols looked pretty good, I guess.
I guess. I don't know. Austin P. Eeh. That was rough.
That's a win.
Win's a win.
I think
You take a win. You go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say the big matchup was that Alabama-Texas game.
Yeah,
Wow.
right. And Texas won, right?
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Love it.
Deep in the heart of Texas.
See, that happened a lot for
No,
Mr.
no,
Saban
no.
down in
No.
Tuscaloosa.
That's a rough way to start the
Exactly.
what is usually going to be for the Alabama is usually going to be a pretty good season, and right off the bat you get your cage rattled by the mighty Longhorns of Texas.
And is this a sign of the challenges to come next season when Oklahoma and Texas join the Southeastern
Exactly.
Conference?
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah, could
hadn't
be
thought about
very
that.
interesting.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I from time to time wish that I had gone to a school that had a good football team, that had a football team at all.
Period. Yeah.
Yeah. Period. I mean, there's not often that we talk about the mighty American University Eagles.
Nice mascot, though.
Yeah.
American Eagles. It's hard to beat that.
Yeah. I never went to one. They do have they got a soccer team and they got some other things, but I never went to one game while
Are they
Of course,
all
I went-
intramural?
Yeah, I don't know, but I had a fairly good basketball team one year, but that's all. American Eagles, go Eagles. It's so embarrassing when people say, "Where'd you go to school?" And I went to American University, home of the mighty Fighting Eagles.
They're like, yeah, I assumed you went to an American university. Which one?
Yeah, which one did you go to?
No,
It's
American.
it's called the American University. Yeah, I did. All right. Well, anyway, let me, while I've got a moment here, also share this with you. All day today, we're supporting the Monroe Carroll Jr. Children's Hospital as they team up with the Nashville Soccer Club to fight kids' cancer. Now, we're going to give you the opportunity to bid on unique experiences such as a live broadcast featuring your favorite WTN host from your business and VIP packages to our next live event. That'll be good. Plus, an incredible experience featuring the Nashville Soccer Club and so much more. Your bids will support Monroe Carroll Jr. Children's Hospital at Vanderbilt, the #1 pediatric hospital in Tennessee and in the Southeast. Here's how you participate. You can kick cancer. Just kick cancer to 615-488-4401. Or you can just go to our website, 997wtn.com, and you can find the link. It'll take care of you there. Just, that's the best way. Just go to our website, 997wtn.com. You'll find all the links to this. I mean, wouldn't it be fun, to have a sort of a personal visit to your place of business by, maybe it would be Matt Murphy, maybe it'd be Brian Wilson, maybe it'd be Dan Mandis. I don't know.
Wow.
And we just come up there and yeah.
I just want to see if he's listening.
Yeah. No, that'll be great. It'd be great. So, listen, again, this is something that we're doing this year, and really would love you to support this really good cause and get something out of it in return.
Yeah.
Is that, yeah.
Win-win.
So that's it. Win-win. I wasn't going to do it now, but people have asked me from time to time about what you were doing on 9/11. And I posted on Facebook the only two pictures that I have from that day. I mean, one of them my cameraman took for me, and then the second one was taken by, I believe, is an Associated Press photographer who happened to see me standing on the lawn of the Capitol, and he took a picture. It's on my Facebook page, at Brian Wilson 997, and take a look at it. And it tells the story very quickly. I was headed into town on the train as I took the train in from the suburbs, and my pager went off, and I called the station, and I called the bureau, the Fox News bureau, and they said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm just arriving at Union Station. Go to the Capitol. Go to the Capitol now." I said, what's going on? They said, well, the Twin Towers have been hit in New York. And I wasn't putting it together at all. I didn't understand what was happening at all. I said, okay. I was having a hard time understanding. Why go to the Capitol? And I had come that day dressed in casual clothing because I had planned to do a feature piece, and I was going to be on the Potomac River. And so I didn't feel like I could go to Capitol Hill dressed that way. And thank goodness the Fox Bureau is halfway between Union Station and the Capitol. So I whipped over there. I always kept a suit in my office. And as I came up and went into the bureau, the first time I saw the pictures, I understood the magnitude of the issue. I had thought plane. I thought it was like maybe a Cessna or something, or that's what I thought. And then when I saw what was going on, it immediately registered with me. This is big. And so I quickly put on a jacket and a tie, and I hightailed it the other 2 blocks over to Capitol Hill, and was talking. They actually came to me at one point, and I told them that the Capitol had not been evacuated, but there was concern, and that the First Lady was there that day, and there was concern about whether her event was going to go forward, and they were still putting this all together, right? It's still chaos, and everybody's trying to figure out what they should do. And then I finished up that live shot. And we had a little speaker in our office up on Capitol Hill that anytime there was breaking news, you would call a certain number and everybody in Fox would hear whatever it is you had to say. And so that speaker went off and somebody said, guys, it was a camera crew. Guys, does anybody know why there's smoke coming from the Pentagon? And there was a long pause. And then somebody came on the line from the Bureau and said, we think the Pentagon's been hit. And that set into motion, as you can imagine, up on Capitol Hill, they decided we better get everybody out of the building. We don't know what's going on here. So they evacuated the building. And I evacuated with them to an area out in front of the Senate that was known as the swamp site. It was a place where we had all our live connections and that went back to the Bureau. And so there was a camera crew there. And I remember distinctly seeing senators come down from the Senate side and stand in the parking lot there in a circle holding hands and praying for the country. They had figured out that this was big. And I reported all this. I'm on the air and I'm reporting all this. And I see out of the corner of my eye, I see it before I hear it, a jet flying straight up the mall, a military fighter aircraft flying straight up the mall. It got to Capitol Hill and it vectored north and west. And I talked about it, and there was a sonic boom. That plane was going so fast that there was a sonic boom, which is something you don't hear much. You don't hear it very often. And I thought, I didn't put it together that the explosion in the plane, but that was a sonic boom. I thought, well, there's been an explosion. We don't know what that is either. And on that day, you had no idea what might be next. So I got off the air, and then a cop came over to me and said, Brian, you've got to move across the street to the Supreme Court. And I said, why? And he said, well, there's another plane coming, and it's headed straight for the Capitol. And that was the first time, as far as I know, anybody knew about the fourth aircraft. And so I'm trying to call that in to get it on the air. I've got perhaps the most important information at that moment, that there's still one out there, and it's headed, they believe, to the Capitol. And I'm trying to get through, and I kept getting hung up on. In the chaos of what was going on in New York. I mean, the Twin Towers were starting to collapse. It was a horrible situation for the people in New York. And every time I would call, they say, not now. I said, wait, there's another plane coming. And they finally put me on the air. And I got that information on the air literally while stringing cable across the Capitol lawn to get as far away from the building as I possibly could. Once I got that on the air, then I left to go cover other things, and I covered the Congress. The leadership of the Congress was at the Capitol Police building that day. And I then ended up being asked to go after about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. They asked me, would you please go to the Capitol, and that you'll be reporting from there till further notice. And so I went to the Pentagon and covered that for, well, the better part of 2 weeks. But I was there on the afternoon at the Pentagon and stayed on that story for about, my memory is about 2 or 3 weeks. That would be my story, whatever was happening there. And it's a day I'll never forget. And the sort of, to wrap it all up, I'm always in a crisis. I'm pretty good because I'm just thinking about get it on the air, do what you have to do. Whether it's a personal crisis or a news disaster, on the day of the things going down, I'm okay. But then I always have sort of a delayed reaction. And I remember coming back to the Capitol. The next day, I'm going to cover the afternoon all the way through prime time. And I had about 3 hours of sleep. And the country music radio station I was listening to at the time had a tradition of playing the national anthem every day at noon. And they played the national anthem, and I had to pull over. I just completely lost it. I still get emotional talking about it now. I had to pull over and just sort of regather myself to remember, what we'd all been through. It sort of hit me about a day later. So I stayed there for about 2 weeks and was there, when they lowered the flag in front of the Pentagon, damage. And I'll always remember those days. And as I said earlier, what I'm hoping is that we don't forget the lessons of 9/11. Certainly, I didn't have near the challenge that others had that day. But that's my story, as I reported on 9/11 22 years ago today. 51 minutes now past the hour. D.T. McCall, let me tell you about those folks. Good people. They've been around in business in Middle Tennessee for 100 years. You don't make it that long unless you have a good reputation for treating people right. And listen, what is it that you need for your home? Is it appliances? They got a great selection. Furniture, same thing. You need a mower? I mean, whatever you need for your house, chances are the good people at D.T. McCall's can provide it for you. Cabana wife and I went over there looking for furniture, and we had very different ideas about what we wanted. But it was because of the huge selection of furniture they had there that we were able to find within a few minutes just everything we needed to complete our home. So if you're in that boat, you need furniture, you need appliances, don't go to the big box store. Keep your dollars local. Go to DT McCall's. Learn more about their 5 convenient locations by going to their website, dtmccalls.com.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things I like to do for investors is educate them, because the more educated I believe that you are as an investor, the more peace of mind you have, the less you worry, and the more successful you're likely to be as an investor. So here goes another education. If we look at a lot of these investment portfolios, like these target date funds out there or portfolios put together by big mutual fund companies, they'll often use something called a total market fund. And you think, wow, I own the whole market in one mutual fund. Matter of fact, there's a really popular video out there on YouTube that says you can get by with just a couple mutual funds and you can be totally diversified. Nothing could be further from the truth. What's going on here is this. One of the things we know as an investor is that you have small companies out there and you have large companies out there. You have growth companies and you have value companies. I taught this in a previous video. We expect more return from small companies than we do large because they have to pay more to use your money historically. Value companies have to pay more to use your money historically as well. Now, what happens with total market funds is they weight based on the size of the company. Well, that would mean that a bigger company would represent more of the portfolio. So graphically, it would look something like this. The fund would look like this. That there's a ton of money in really big companies and there's almost no money in really small companies in those portfolios. So it's not really diversified. Do they own them? Yeah, they own them, but they almost have no money in them. So when these do really well, you're not really getting the benefit from it. What we would be better served doing is investing in various areas of the market and holding different types of funds to be more balanced between these areas. That's what academic research shows us, is if we can hold these areas more separately, then we end up with a better risk-return experience. So this is one of the things that we teach people. We like for you to understand this because the more you understand it, the less you're pulled astray from the investing industry that's typically all about selling you things. Yeah, total market fund, it sounds really good. Not necessarily so great in practice. Now, if you want to find out a little bit more and learn more about investing so that you're a more educated investor, why don't you take us up on a free 15-minute phone call? Go to paulwinkler.com. It's paulwinkler.com. You can set up one in any of our offices, our 10 offices around the Nashville area. There's one near you, most likely. Set that up. Come see us. We love to educate investors. I think you'll be happy you did.
Remembering 9/11, a boating-related death in Tennessee, A prison escapee in Pennsylvania still on the run almost 2 weeks later. And an explosion in Nolensville today. Those stories and more coming up at 4 o'clock right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, very quickly, look at the price of oil. Brit crude, $90 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate, just below that, $87 a barrel. That has an impact on the price of gas going forward. Looking at the markets, Dow Jones Industrial up 87, the S&P up 29, the NASDAQ up 156. So a good day on the market. With more, here's John Maxon from Beacon Capital Management. Hello, John. Well, we apparently have lost John. But learn about all the things they can do for you over at Beacon Capital Management by going to their website. That's askbeaconnow.com. It is 58 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Let me talk to you about the folks over at Fleeman's. I mean, if you like to go and you go to the Legend Steakhouse, you have one of those great steaks, and you have a good meal, well, you can enjoy some of those same flavors right at home, fresh off your very own grill. Just take a walk down your local grocery aisles at places like Walmart and Kroger and look for Johnny Fleeman's very own brand. You'll likely see his famous fruit tea at your local grocery store, along with salad dressings and Johnny Fleeman's steak marinades. Johnny Fleeman's proprietary blend will give your steaks, chicken, or chops a flavor that will hit a home run with family and friends. It's low in sodium, about a third of other brands, and you don't have to worry about over-marinating. You can also use this marinade to enhance almost any dish, your favorite rice recipe, fresh vegetables, just about anything. If your favorite grocer isn't stocking Johnny Fleeman products, ask them to do so. For more information, go to visit johnnyfleeman.com. That's johnnyfleeman.com. And it goes without saying that for those times when you want someone else to do the cooking, they'll always be glad to see you at your nearest Legend Steakhouse for lunch or dinner.
Four o'clock, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Currently 89 degrees, and that's the high for the whole week. Going to be low 80s and low 60s. Getting a lot more fall-like weather. Complete weather and traffic in 5 minutes.
The reading of the names going on right now at the 9/11 Memorial in New York City.
Gordon M. Amat Jr.
Adomiro Abad.
Marie Rose Abad.
Andrew Anthony Abate.
It has been more than 2 decades since the attacks that brought down the World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan, but ABC's Derek Waller at Ground Zero says the death toll is still rising.
Nearly 3,000 people died on 9/11, but 22 years later, first responders are still feeling the effects. Thousands diagnosed with cancer, and today, nearly as many people have died from 9/11-related illnesses as the number of people who were killed during the attacks.
There are also commemorations going on today at the Pentagon in Washington, where 184 people were killed on 9/11, and in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, where 40 passengers and crew on board United Flight 93 were killed. With continuing coverage remembering 9/11.
That was Sherry Preston reporting. Right now in Tennessee, a dad and his 9-year-old son died this weekend by crashing a jet ski into a barge. This was on Cheatham Lake. The barge was being pushed by a towboat. and the dad was pronounced dead on the scene that Saturday. The 9-year-old's body wasn't found until Sunday evening. Officials say both were wearing life vests, and that makes 22 boating-related deaths in Tennessee this year. And nearly 2 weeks after a convicted murderer escaped a prison near Philadelphia, authorities say they do not believe he has left the city. Brian Clark says they still don't know where he is.
Weekend sightings of Danilo Cavalcante in the Phoenixville area led authorities to shift their search for the escaped murderer. Deputy U.S. Marshal Robert Clark says,
"Now we're going to prepare for the long game, and the long game is what we do best."
The search area moved after Cavalcante apparently stole a van, which was found abandoned in East Nantmeal Township. As the search continues, State Police Lieutenant Colonel George Bivens told anyone thinking about helping Cavalcante,
"We will prosecute you fully for those actions."
He said Cavalcante's sister, a Brazilian national, is being deported after she refused to assist.
And an explosion here in Tennessee. Channel 4 says that there was an explosion this morning in Nolensville. It caused some damage. Police say it happened at a construction site at Hillside Center. No injuries reported, but the vehicles were the things that were damaged, and the cause of that explosion still being investigated. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. 7 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. That's right. I'm your Farb, and I'm so glad that you're with us here on the 11th day of September, 2023. We're really glad to have you here. We're going to talk a lot about what's going on. It is, of course, 9/11, and then some 22 years ago, the attacks took place on the Twin Towers, and 4 aircraft, all the souls on board them were all lost, and what a terrible day it was. But interestingly enough, your president was nowhere to be seen at any of these sites. They sent the vice president to Ground Zero. They sent her husband to Shanksville, and to my knowledge, military people handled everything that was going on at the Pentagon. He was in Vietnam for a meeting. It was a meeting of the world leaders, and he was there. But I'm telling you, the press conference that he gave should scare the bejesus out of anybody who watched it. Have you seen some of these clips? Have you watched them? Have they come up on your social media feeds? Well, if so, then you know what I'm talking about, and if not, stand by, because I've assembled some of these weirder moments that occurred. So, look, it's not easy traveling overseas, and you've got to deal with the time changes and jet lag and a whole host of other things. Anybody who's traveled overseas can tell you that they're very real, and probably even more real for an 80-year-old man. But he's on a jet where he has his own bed, he has his own shower. He doesn't have to go through, airports. He doesn't have to deal with all the things you and I'd have to deal with. He should arrive refreshed and ready wherever he goes. He was not. And so he came in to do this press conference, and he started out by making a joke that was just bizarre and was hard to follow about the movie Good Morning Vietnam, except he doesn't seem to understand that it was a movie. He thinks it was a song. I'm not making this up. I apologize for the echoey nature of this video, but we cobbled this together from several different sources.
This around the world in 5 days is interesting. Well, there's that, one of my staff members said, the famous song, Good Morning Vietnam, or Good Evening Vietnam, and Good Morning Back in America.
Good evening, Vietnam. He said, they were talking about, my staff was talking about that song, Good Morning Vietnam. Well, it wasn't a song. It was a movie. Does virtually everyone remember Robin Williams in Good Morning Vietnam? Oh, my gosh. Well, he didn't. He thinks it's a song. Then he proceeds to call on reporters, and he's got a list of 5 names, and he says, I'm just going to be able to call on these 5 people because I'm just following orders.
And let's see. I'm just following my orders here. Staff, if anybody have this open? I ain't calling on you. I'm calling, I said I have 5 questions. Anita, BOA.
There you go. Somebody finally shouted a name for him. He couldn't even read off the list. The dog-faced lying pony soldier made its debut again. It reared its ugly head.
My brother loves having those famous lines from movies that he always quotes. And one of them is there's a movie about John Wayne. He's an Indian scout, and they're trying to get I think it was Apache, one of the great tribes of America, back on the reservation. And he's standing with the Union, so we're all armed, they're on their horses and their saddles, and there's 3 or 4 Indians in headdresses, and the Union soldiers basically saying, the Indians, come with me, we'll take care of the movie, everything will be good. And the Indian looks at John Wayne and points to the Union soldier and says, he's a lying, dog-faced pony soldier. Well, there's a lot of lying dog-faced pony soldiers out there about global warming. But not anymore. All of a sudden, we're all realizing it's a problem. And there's nothing like seeing the light.
Well, first of all, I think he inaccurately describes the movie, is what I'm told. I have not seen the movie. But, he uses this to, and every time he wants to say that there a lot of people out there have the wrong idea about this, and he calls them a long-faced, dog-faced pony soldier.
You're a lion, dog-faced pony soldier.
Lion, dog-faced pony soldier. So that comes up again. And then listen to this. It's just out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of his 5 questions. All he has to do is answer 5 questions that have been pre-screened by his office. That's not supposed to happen, but it does. And he just decides that in the middle of it, he blurts out, "I think I want to go to bed."
Nobody likes having celebrated international meetings if you don't know what you want at the meeting. If you don't have a game plan. He may have a game plan. He just hasn't shared it with me. But I tell you what, I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to bed.
I mean, he was struggling for every word. I mean, go back to the beginning of this. Listen, it's like he can't find words.
Nobody likes having celebrated international meetings if you don't know what you want at the meeting. If you don't have a game plan. He may have a game plan. He just hasn't shared it with me. But I tell you what, I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to bed.
It's that last part.
Go to bed.
That's right. What is he talking about?
But I'm going to go to bed.
I mean, just out of nowhere. Clearly struggling with words, with thoughts, any semblance of coherence. And then the end of it is just almost too bizarre to describe. Karine Jean-Pierre, standing in the wings, realizes this is a disaster. And so in the middle of the press conference, she simply jumps up and says, thank you very much, and cuts the president's mic off. Can you believe that somebody had the temerity to cut off the president's mic? But they did. And then he walks away. Somebody shouts out a question. He comes back to the microphone. The microphone is off. And all the time this is going on, the most bizarre, soft jazz music is playing in the background. I mean, I'm trying to describe it, but here's how it went down. It's just unbelievable.
We talked about at the conference overall. We talked about stability. We talked about making sure that the Southern Hemisphere had access to changes, had access. It wasn't confrontational at all.
I mean, right up to there.
Thank you, everybody. This ends the press conference. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
And then they passed, hors d'oeuvres and all had a party, I guess. I don't know. Sounds like he comes back.
Mr. President, are you worried about your son being indicted, Mr. President?
And he walks away.
Wow.
I mean, I'll give it to Karine. She realized it was a disaster, and it had already gone so badly. I mean, there's nothing that she could have done that would have made it worse, but, I mean, I think she did. Because, I mean, right here, she just jumps right in the middle.
Thank you, everybody. This ends the press conference. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
And he starts to walk away. And then, what is this music? And he comes back. His mic's off. Now it's on.
With every person I've met with.
Mr. President, are you worried about your son being indicted, Mr. President?
It's like where's the lounge singer needs to come out now.
That's right. The press corps began to dance one with the other, of that groovy
I thought you edited that music in. That is
I
crazy.
did not.
Like it. Yeah.
That's so
No,
crazy.
that happened.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's just, it was the worst performance and a rookie showing, by the way, of the by the press corps advance team to let him do that, when he's obviously jet lagged and too tired. But and then the music, usually it's tan, 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 tan. Instead, this time it's just, hey, would you pass the hors d'oeuvres?
Mr. President.
Would you like to dance, darling? Good night music, I guess, for the president, so he can go, relax and go to sleep.
I'm not going to be a mule. I got something to do. I got to go do boom.
Have you ever seen such a mess? And it's funny, but it's not funny. It's funny because, we expect that our leaders are going to be somewhat coherent. And this clearly was not the case. It's. Can you imagine? Just think for a moment. Again, this is my concern. That this man gets a call in that state at 2:00 in the morning. And by the way, on the anniversary of 9/11, that's always got to be in the back of your mind, right? I hate to say that, but we always wonder, is there going to be a follow-on attack? We have had those. And I look at it and I go, I really worry that this man has it together enough to answer the call at 2:00 in the morning when they need a quick decision from him about some kind of crisis in the world. And all he can do is say, look,
But I'm going to go to bed.
I've got to go to bed. I laugh, but honestly, it's a concern. Who's in charge of this train wreck? Who's in charge of this White House? I'll tell you who was in charge of this press conference, and it wasn't the President of the United States. It was Karine, who mercifully stepped in to stop it. It was like a train wreck in slow motion. You could just, it just kept coming and coming and coming and coming. He did eventually make it to Elmendorf Air Force Base in Alaska, where he had comments about 9/11. What Elmendorf Air Force Base in Alaska had to do with the events of 9/11, I don't know. But he did stop and have a few things to say. But I fear for this country under this kind of leadership. And how the Democrats can possibly watch all of this and say, he's our guy. We're going to vote for him again. I don't know how you could possibly think that. Again, I don't know anything about what's really going to happen on Election Day. But I'm betting that between now and Election Day, Joe Biden is not going to be the nominee. Somebody else will arise. Is this the one? Is this the event that they need to see, that he's not able to function? That we don't really have a president of the United States at all? Scary. So very scary. I think I just want to.
But I'm going to go to bed.
I think I'm just going to go to bed. I just can't face it anymore. 21 minutes now past the hour. One of the hardest things we see as we grow older into adulthood is that our parents and loved ones are coming to an age where they start to struggle with the day-to-day things that were once so easy. It reminds us that they're approaching an age where they will need more and more help every day. Well, that's where assisted family care can help. You see, a lot of veterans and spouses of veterans are approaching a time in life where they're going to need assistance. For some, it may be errands and housekeeping. For others, it could be daily activities. There's a little-known veterans benefit that could be a major help to veterans with wartime service. Veterans may be eligible to receive up to 20 hours of daily living assistance each week at no cost to them. Now, not everyone is eligible, but if you're a veteran with wartime service, you may well qualify for the benefit for yourself or for your spouse. I want to warn you, the application process is daunting and confusing. But just call Assisted Family Care. They can help you work through all of that. Assisted Family Care can help. Assisted Family Care will be there for you. Visit assistedfamilycare.com or call this number, 615-833-9725.
President Biden in Alaska remembering 9/11 today, a blood shortage, and today's money news. Those stories coming up 30 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 26 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I don't know. I just feel like, there's just a little dining and dancing music. Pass some soft hors d'oeuvres.
Refill your champagne, sir.
That's right, yeah. God, what a bunch of amateurs. Rank frickin' amateurs. I laugh, but I also cry. It really troubles me what's going on with this administration. They just talk about the gang that can't shoot straight. Just bizarre. Well, the Biden investigation into Hunter Biden and by extension his dad, the big guy, continues. Congress is back after a recess. They're starting to get together, and it looks like they're headed toward an impeachment inquiry. Representative Byron Donalds talked about that.
These accounts that were set up originally, the core of the tax evasion that Hunter Biden did do to the tunes of millions of dollars. The accounts that were set up were when Joe Biden was vice president of the United States. Joe Biden was in business meetings with Hunter's clients. Joe Biden was on the phone. Now we find out that there's 5,400 emails that the National Archives has had this entire time, where Joe Biden is using fake names in these emails, fake email accounts, so he can communicate with business partners on the side. All the while, Joe Biden has consistently said he never knew anything about what Hunter was doing. Then they had to change the story to say he never benefited from what Hunter was doing. But there is a text message from Hunter Biden to his daughter saying that at least you don't have to pay half of your salary to me the way I have to do it to my father. This is a joke. Yeah. It is public corruption. And I believe that when we have these emails, it's going to demonstrate what we all know, which is Hunter Biden and Joe Biden have been in cahoots the entire time.
Well, I mean, Byron Donalds, by the way, is there anybody who's more effective in sort of laying it out? I mean, this guy's really good. Keep an eye on this guy, because I'm telling you, he's gonna impress as we go down the path. There are those who are apparently some moderate Republicans are very worried about this march toward potential impeachment of the president. I mean, remember, the first step is an impeachment inquiry. And that, if you pass that, then the House of Representatives is given sort of supercharged investigative powers that they don't have otherwise. And so that will be the first vote to start an impeachment inquiry. If they find enough, then they may decide to impeach the president, which basically means they find that there's enough there that there should be a trial. It's sort of equivalent to the House of Representatives handing up an indictment to the Senate. Now, the Senate, which is controlled by Democrats, can't say no. They have to hold a trial. If it comes from the House, then the Senate has to take some kind of action. But being controlled by Democrats, one wonders just how thorough that will be, or whether they find some way to circumvent an actual impeachment trial, or if they just, bum rush it through and say, we got more Democrat votes than Republican. Maybe they can, get it through. I don't know. But if the House comes up with something truly compelling, and it seems like to me each day they're getting very, very close to this, it's going to be really hard for the Senate to ignore. We talked a few moments ago about Joe Biden's not really going to be the nominee, is he? Is this the opportunity that Democrats will have to get shed of Joe Biden? Seems like it would be something unlikely to happen in a democratically controlled Senate, but who knows? They've got to do something. And if the House comes up with something that is pretty compelling, and I think they will, seems likely that the Senate might use that as the opportunity to, as they say, change horses in the middle of the stream. 4:30 now on Super Talk.
.30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 88 degrees on Music Row. And we got a full weather forecast and the latest traffic report headed your way in 5 minutes. President Biden traveled to Alaska today to mark the 22nd anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks. Speaking in Anchorage, Mr. Biden said he understands the lingering pain felt by many 9/11 families.
While every year we mark this hallowed day, it's never easy. To anyone here or anyone across the country who's grieving a lost child, parent, spouse, sibling, friend, or coworker, to all those who still bear the wounds from the searing September morning, I know how hard it is.
President Biden's first wife and 13-month-old daughter were killed in a car crash the week before Christmas back in 1972. The American Red Cross says the number of blood donations last month fell 30,000 short of the target. It's now contributing to a national blood shortage. And over to the Money News, Daria Albinger walks us through Wall Street on the opening day.
Stocks ticked higher to start the week. The Dow rose 87 points. The Nasdaq added 156 for the day, and the S&P closed up 30. The markets are recovering some of the losses from last week as investors look toward several big economic reports this week on inflation and retail sales. The Fed, which meets next week, will take the data into consideration when it decides what to do regarding interest rates. JetBlue says it's reached an agreement to turn over Spirit Airlines operations at Boston's Logan and Newark, New Jersey airports as the carrier ramps up an effort to win regulatory approval to buy the carrier. It would allow Allegiant Airlines to acquire Spirit's 2 gates at Logan and 2 gates at Newark, just outside New York City. The Walt Disney Company has reached an agreement on carriage rights with Charter Communications. That means millions of cable subscribers will again have access to ABC, ESPN, and other channels.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Let me tell you about T. King Insurance. They've been in business over 25 years as an independent agency based in Brentwood. They can provide policy that are specific to the client's needs. And listen, let me tell you about these people. If you have a high-value home, they know which companies you should look at to save you as much as possible. Don't wait until you buy your next home to realize that you've been overpaying like so many people do. Listen, I'm telling you, call this number, 615-329-8121. Now, you won't reach a call center. You'll get an actual person every single time. And they know that every life is different, but they also know they can save you a ton of money. They can find that particular policy that really fits your specific needs because they're an independent agency. They're not trying to push a square peg into a round hole. They're not trying to do that at all. You can save a ton of money with multi-policy discounts, 20, 25, 30, 35%. You need to get your Royal Review. It starts with a Royal Review at King & Associates. Just log into tkinginsurance.com. That's tkinginsurance.com. King Insurance & Associates, Royal Treatment, great rates. I think you're going to like doing business with the folks over at King & Associates. Give them a call. 39 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, your Farb, and we're so glad that you're with us here on this Monday. Kicking off a new week. Feeling good today, feeling really good. I mean, beautiful outside. Got some yard work done. Got bit by a lot of bugs.
Well, that's one of the hazards of doing yard work.
Yeah. Remind me next time to go out there. I mean, with a long sleeve shirt and something other than shorts and a flip flop, because I mean the bugs got me bad today. It was. I'm going to be nursing those bug bites for a week or so. I mean, I got like 4 or 5 of them. Anyway, that's my tragedy for today. You know, New Mexico. I just came back from New Mexico not long ago. Took a few days of vacation up there. They call it the land of enchantment, but there's nothing enchanting about what's going on in New Mexico. Have you heard this? The New Mexico governor has announced a suspension of open and concealed carry in the Albuquerque and surrounding Bernalillo County. She says an unusual move was needed after a spate of gun deaths, including some children. But there are officials who are, I think, rightfully asking whether or not she is acting in a constitutional way. Michelle Lujan Grisham, Democrat, said that the state is temporarily suspending open and concealed carry of firearms in Albuquerque and the surrounding county for 30 days, describing the unusual move as a necessary response to gun violence. Quote, "Gun violence is an epidemic in America, and I'm done letting it be an epidemic anywhere in my state. Enough is enough." It is true that they've got a little problem there in Albuquerque. The state has had set records in terms of homicides. Other communities across the country have also experienced bleak increases in gun violence in recent years. Well, let's stop there for a moment. Why is that? Why are you seeing such an uptick? Is it the law-abiding constitutional carry people who have followed the letter of the law, who have gone out and done the paperwork, taken a course if that's needed, do whatever you need to get your concealed carry permit? These are not your problem. The problem are the criminal element in that town, and one has to ask, okay, could your effort be better focused on trying to get bad people in jail? I don't know. It seems like a concept. If you have people out there who are shooting each other, and that's a bad criminal element in your community, how about focusing on that? Why don't you? There were 76 homicides so far this year, and actually they say Albuquerque has seen a decrease in gun violence. 93 victims at the same point last year, but much higher than the 50 victims through that period in 2019. On Thursday, Lujan Grisham issued an executive order declaring that violence was a public health emergency. Her order cited an overall rise in gun deaths in the state, pointed to recent shootings with multiple victims. Among the cases she highlighted were several involving children. Then on Friday, Lujan Grisham announced the suspension of open and concealed carry permits in Bernalillo County and in Albuquerque, which is the county seat. During a news conference with other law enforcement officials alongside her, the governor said the community was struggling to contend with gunfire day after day. It's not the law-abiding people who get their concealed carry permits. That's not your problem, Governor. The problem is the people who don't follow the law, and they should be prosecuted to the nth degree of the law. And I have a suspicion that they are like Democrat-controlled cities everywhere, very soft on prosecuting people and putting them behind bars. Let me continue here. Some of this stuff is unbelievable. Albuquerque Police Chief Harold Medina wrote in a message to his department saying, we're not going to get involved. Basically, he said, we're not going to get involved in this. This is a mandate for state law enforcement, not the Albuquerque Police Department. The state patrol in New Mexico will be responsible for enforcement of civil violations of the order. Albuquerque police said, I'm not getting involved in this. If you want it, bring in the state patrol and you handle it. A spokeswoman at the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office, John Allen, wrote in an email Saturday that it would not be responsible for enforcing the order. So you have basically the chief of police in Albuquerque and the county sheriff of Bernalillo County saying, we're not going to pay a whit of attention to the governor. And it's upon the state patrol to come in and enforce this order from the governor because it was not made by local or county officials. Allen went on to say, while I understand and appreciate the urgency, the temporary ban challenges the foundation of the Constitution, which I swore an oath to uphold. I am wary of placing my deputies in positions that could lead to civil liability conflicts as well as potential risk posed by prohibiting law-abiding citizens from their constitutional right for self-defense. I mean, if you crack down on the people who have concealed carry permits and have gone through the process to register, I mean, you get a concealed carry permit, the state requires, generally that you register or go through a course or something like that, but not always. It would seem to me that you are disarming the good guys. And the people who are bad guys are not going to pay one whit of attention to you. If I lived in New Mexico, I would just be in violation of their order. I simply would not follow it. Take your chances. I mean, what's the old saying? I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried out by 6. That's the way I'd look at it. Pretty astonishing stuff here. State Senator Greg Baca, a Republican, said this is what we've come to expect from an administration that refuses to take responsibility for the crime epidemic gripping our state. Yeah, go after the bad guys. Make sure you arrest people who have violated the law. Leave the law-abiding citizens alone. Lujan Grisham said Saturday she disagreed with the idea that the measure was not constitutional. Otherwise, she said, I wouldn't have done it. But many, many others are saying, wait. The Supreme Court would knock this down if it ever got there in a heartbeat. This is a 30-day order. Let me read you this one. Another version of the story from Fox News. New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham's controversial comments in defense of a temporary gun ban prompted fierce backlash on social media. The Democrat issued an emergency public health order on Friday, suspending the right to carry guns in public across Albuquerque and Bernalillo County for 30 days. Local law enforcement officials have expressed concern, yes, that's right, about a violation of your Second Amendment rights. The governor acknowledged the ban may face legal challenges and addressed these concerns during a press conference. But after a reporter, listen to this, questioned whether Grisham was upholding her oath to the Constitution, she argued that no constitutional rights were fixed, including her oath. No constitutional right, in my view, including my oath, is intended to be absolute. Grisham cited restrictions on free speech as an example of how rights can be curtailed in an emergency situation. Wow. At the risk of stating what should be obvious, deliberately violating the Constitution is a next-level illegal. How soon can this person be removed from office? Asked Elon Musk on social media. The governor of New Mexico is using a public health order to suspend a right guaranteed by the Constitution. That's right, a public health order, said Ron DeSantis. Press Secretary Jeremy Redfern. Did you think the left was going to just stop at forcing you to wear a mask? Some commentators doubted the governor's order would withstand legal challenges. D.C. versus Heller, McDonald versus Chicago would disagree. Conservative political activist and former Texas congressional candidate Christian Collins wrote, the order, in my view, is flagrantly unconstitutional under existing Second Amendment precedent, legal scholar Jonathan Turley wrote. It could also be calculated effort to evade a ruling by making the period of suspension so short it becomes moot before it can actually get to a court. Yeah, I doubt a federal judge is going to look kindly at this press conference where Governor Michelle Grisham openly talks about wanting to arrest licensed gun carriers and her view that her own oath of office is not absolute. I'm telling you, this woman is a complete disaster. Let's just get it straight. The Democrats will stop at nothing to come and take away your rights. If she focused near as much on making sure that the police had the tools that they needed and the prosecutors had everything they needed to prosecute people who have violated the law, who are the criminal element, and leave the law-abiding concealed carry permit owners alone, she would go a lot further in solving her problem. This is something to watch, but again, it's very interesting. It's a 30-day stunt. Nobody's going to enforce it, it seems, except maybe your own state patrol, and I doubt they want to get involved either. It seems like it's going to be largely ignored, and if you're a concealed carry permit person in the state of New Mexico, what I'm reading is many of you just decided you're not going to change what you do one whit. You'll take your chances in court if it comes to that. A public health order to override a constitutional amendment, the Second Amendment. What a bonehead. 50 minutes now past the hour. All right, some exciting news for you. Many have lived here in a long time. You know about Eurofix. You know they've been in Middle Tennessee for some 24 years now. We've all got to watch them grow. I don't know about you, but it's fun to watch a hometown business take off. Well, we are now proud to announce a 5th location for Eurofix in Mount Juliet on Mount Juliet Road. Beautiful facility. I mean, drive by, take a look at it, you'll see it. But really, you should drive in if you have a European car. It's right across from the Dairy Queen. Eurofix can serve you in Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now in Mount Juliet. It's pretty cool getting to watch a small-town mechanic starting in a barn in the backyard of a single-wide trailer grow to where there are 5 locations where they're repairing thousands of cars each month. At Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner with every repair appointment. Call this number, 844-EUROFIX. That's 844-EUROFIX. Or visit myEurofix.com.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things I like to do for investors is educate them, because the more educated I believe that you are as an investor, the more peace of mind you have, the less you worry, and the more successful you're likely to be as an investor. So here goes another education. If we look at a lot of these investment portfolios, like these target date funds out there or portfolios put together by big mutual fund companies, they'll often use something called a total market fund. And you think, wow, I own the whole market in one mutual fund. Matter of fact, there's a really popular video out there on YouTube that says you can get by with just a couple mutual funds and you can be totally diversified. Nothing could be further from the truth. What's going on here is this. One of the things we know as an investor is that you have small companies out there and you have large companies out there. You have growth companies and you have value companies. I taught this in a previous video. We expect more return from small companies than we do large because they have to pay more to use your money historically. Value companies have to pay more to use your money historically as well. Now, what happens with total market funds is they weight based on the size of the company. Well, that would mean that a bigger company would represent more of the portfolio. So graphically, it would look something like this. The fund would look like this. That there's a ton of money in really big companies and there's almost no money in really small companies in those portfolios. So it's not really diversified. Do they own them? Yeah, they own them, but they almost have no money in them. So when these do really well, you're not really getting the benefit from it. What we would be better served doing is investing in various areas of the market and holding different types of funds to be more balanced between these areas. That's what academic research shows us, is if we can hold these areas more separately, then we end up with a better risk-return experience. So this is one of the things that we teach people. We like for you to understand this because the more you understand it, the less you're pulled astray from the investing industry that's typically all about selling you things. Yeah, total market fund, it sounds really good. Not necessarily so great in practice. Now, if you want to find out a little bit more and learn more about investing so that you're a more educated investor, why don't you take us up on a free 15-minute phone call. Go to paulwinkler.com. That's paulwinkler.com. You can set up one in any of our offices, our 10 offices around the Nashville area. There's one near you, most likely. Set that up. come see us. We love to educate investors. I think you'll be happy you did.
President Biden remembering 9/11 while in Alaska. Putin and Kim Jong-un meeting soon. A road rage shooting incident in Tennessee. And an artist whose song has spoken volumes to many Americans around the nation set to come right here to Nashville. Those stories and more at 5 o'clock. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I want to mention that today we're supporting the Monroe Carroll Jr. Children's Hospital as they team up with the Nashville Soccer Club to fight kids' cancer. You can bid on unique experiences like a live broadcast featuring your favorite WTN host from your business and VIP packages to our next live event here at WTN. Plus, an incredible experience featuring the Nashville Soccer Club and so much more. Your bids will support Monroe Carroll Jr. Children's Hospital at Vanderbilt, the #1 pediatric hospital in Tennessee and in the Southeast. You can text Kick Cancer to 615-488-4401 or just go to our website 997wtn.com to find the link. It is now 57 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock. Hey, listen, if you have the desire to add gold or silver to your portfolio, I've got an idea for you. I want to tell you about Nashville Gold and Coin. If you're looking to buy real, actual, hold it in your hand gold, silver, or bullion, let me tell you, this is the place I do business. It's the place I recommend. You'll get honest, friendly customer service and, incidentally, a real precious metals education. They also specialize in the buying, selling, and appraising of coins. And you probably have no idea how much those coins you have laying around might be worth. I brought in a few silver coins in a shoebox buried in my sock drawer. Been there forever. Turned out to be worth $1,652. Whether you're in the market for purchase of precious metals or you just want to find out what those coins in your closet might be worth, schedule a one-on-one consultation today. Go to NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. That's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
5 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 88 degrees in Nashville. A slight chance of thunderstorms tomorrow and pretty much all day headed into the evening. The rest of the week, though, looking like clear and sunny skies with fall weather. High in the low 80s, that low in the low 60s. Complete weather forecast, latest traffic report upcoming in 5 minutes. President Biden traveled to Alaska today to mark the 22nd anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks. Speaking in Anchorage, Mr. Biden said after the attack, Americans across the country stepped up to face the enemy.
We know that on this day, every American's heart was wounded. Yet, every big city, small town, suburb, rural town, tribal community, American hands went up, ready to help where they could.
The president recalled the day after being in New York and says looking at the World Trade Center that day was like looking through the gates of hell. And the U.S. State Department today suggested that desperation is behind the upcoming meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Andy Field with the reaction from Washington.
The State Department describing Putin's precarious position.
I think the fact that Russia is having to beg North Korea for military support speaks to the effectiveness of our sanctions and our export controls.
State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller reminding both Russia and North Korea any arms deal would violate UN resolutions and will be met with even tougher sanctions.
Crime right now in Tennessee. News 2 reporting that a 61-year-old Teresa Ann Smith is facing financial exploitation and theft charges. The TBI says that they believe Smith deceived an elderly man to withdraw money from his bank account and used his debit card. She's now being held in the Rutherford County Jail on a $35,000 bond. And staying right here in Nashville, Metro Police looking for a white sedan for a road rage shooting that happened Friday night. Channel 4's Michael Warwick.
Police say it was here near the Nolensville Pike exit. A case of road rage almost turned deadly.
Metro Police hope you know who was in this car with white paint and a temporary tag. They say it weaved in and out of traffic on 440 Friday night before pulling beside a Toyota Prius. Someone fired shots at the Prius, hitting the passenger in the hand and leg. That woman is expected to be okay.
And a reward of $5,000 for any information leading into arrest of a suspect is being offered. If you have any information, you're asked to call Crime Stoppers. And now over to some entertainment news.
I've been selling my soul.
Musical artist Oliver Anthony, whose single Richmond North of Richmond went viral just over a month ago, is now set to perform on Broadway this week. Anthony will perform at Tootsie's for their birthday bash on September 17th in a show that's free to the public. And this comes since Anthony announced that he is touring with the Foo Fighters. That is the latest news, traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Good afternoon, everybody. 6 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, and this is hour number 3 of The Drive for this Monday, September 11th, 2023. That's right. This is the 22nd anniversary, or our remembrance, I think is the better word, of what happened at Ground Zero, what happened at the Pentagon, what happened at Shanksville. This is a day that we stop and we pause and we remember. We should always remember. One of the things that I was thinking about just a moment ago is, what was it like immediately after 9/11? It's like America rallied in a way that I don't think we've seen since perhaps the Second World War. We rallied. I mean, we realized that America had come under attack. And we thought a lot less in those days following 9/11 about whether you were a Republican or whether you were a Democrat. I think we were all, honestly, I think we were just Americans concerned about what had happened to our country and the shocking attack on the mainland that took out the Twin Towers and all the people that were there, that took out lives of our military folks in the Pentagon. Not to mention the lives aboard, Flight 11, which hit the North Tower, or Flight 175, which hit the South Tower, or Flight 77, which hit the Pentagon, and Flight 93, which was forced down by Todd Beamer and others on that flight who said, let's roll, let's take them down. And they did take them down, prevented that aircraft that was coming toward Washington from ever arriving there. It went down in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And all souls on board were killed in what was apparently a very deep dive for that aircraft. We should never forget all of this. We should never forget how we treated each other. I remember driving to work in Washington, D.C. is always a challenge. And Washington, D.C. drivers are not the most benevolent, nice people. And it was really funny how immediately after 9/11, people would just be kind to each other. We'd all been through this trauma, and we were just going out of our way to be kind to one another. You get to an intersection and you say, no, you go. No, you go. No, you go. No, you go. Everybody was trying to be gentle with the other souls around them. We could use a little of that right now, I think. So look, as I look back on 9/11 and my story, I'll tell it here in just a moment, is not much compared to what other people went through. But it's my story, and I did have elements of that story to tell. I think we need to be careful to remember the lessons of that day. And so today it's appropriate to watch the ceremonies at Ground Zero, to watch the ceremonies at Shanksville, to watch the ceremonies at the Pentagon, and remember the tragic attack that we all felt that day. And we should also remember the lessons. You remember the old saying that those who do not learn the mistakes of history are prone to repeat them? Well, I think that's where we are right now. I think in the intervening 22 years, there are millions of people who are on this planet who weren't even alive then. They don't know. They didn't go through it. They can't remember, or they were too young to remember. Young people, take time to study the events of 9/11. And for me, one of the things that just sticks out like a sore thumb is that all of this mayhem, 3,000 people died on the attack that day. And by the way, listen to this. They are now saying that because of smoke inhalation and jet fuel and all of the stuff that the first responders and the workers had to endure, that there are as many people who died after 9/11 in the cleanup, in the investigation, and the rescue than died on that day. More. So we're now talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,000, 7,000 people who have lost their lives due to the attack, and this is what I want to remind you, that was carried out by about a dozen people with box cutters. Let that sink in for a moment. Everything changed security-wise. Airports got more secure. Airplanes got more secure. Federal buildings got more secure. I mean, Washington, D.C. changed literally overnight. Places where you could go, you could no longer go. Concrete barriers were up everywhere to prevent truck bomb attacks. We were responding in a way which I think was appropriate. I hate that we had lost so much of our freedom, but they had to do something to protect federal buildings. They had to do this, that, and the other, and that was the right thing to do. But in the intervening 22 years, memories have faded. And as I said, there are a great number of people alive today who were not alive then. Young people who were too young to remember the lessons of 9/11. Oh, they've seen the video, but they don't really understand. You can't understand unless you live through it. So it's important. Look backwards, pay homage, remember, but then take those lessons and look forward. And this is where I think we're in a world of trouble. And it all has to do with the Biden administration's inability to secure the southern border, but not just the southern border. I'll get more on that in a moment. But I mean, there are 1.6 million people. I want you to just think about that number. 1.6 million people have entered this country who had absolutely no contact whatsoever with law enforcement. The gotaways. And what is a gotaway? Well, it means that we saw them on cameras or we picked them up on sensors, and we know that they got across the border because we could see it, but we didn't have the manpower, we didn't have the personnel to get there in time to stop them. They came across the border with the help of the coyotes, with the help of the cartels, and they came across the border and they evaporated into the fabric of America, and we don't know a damn thing about them. We don't know who they are. We don't know anything about them, but I'm telling you, most people coming across the border right now who want to come to America, they want to have contact with the Border Patrol. It's bizarre, I know, but they do. They want to see the Border Patrol. They want their little slip of paper. They want to get on a plane. They want to get on a bus, and they want to get into America, and the Biden administration is allowing that happen. But we don't know crap about the people who came across the border as gotaways. They're the people who don't seek out the law enforcement. They're the people who run from law enforcement. And why? Because I have a suspicion they're bad people. And I have a suspicion that intelligence organizations around the world who do not have our best interest in mind are sending people across the border, and they're part of that 1.6 million. If 12 people with box cutters can cause 9/11, how many bad people have gotten into the country who can cause problems for this country going forward? Wow. It's scary. It is just scary. Listen to this. We talk about the southern border. While the public focuses on illegal immigration at the southern U.S. border, U.S. Customs and Border Patrol agents are encountering a record number of illegal immigrants at the northern border with Canada. That includes some on the terrorist watch list, sparking outcry from congressional Republicans and local officials after more than 150 migrants have attempted to enter the United States through the northern border so far this fiscal year. The number of immigrants who have entered the U.S. northern border so far this fiscal year, which spans from October of 22 to September of 23, is more than 4.6 times higher than the number that entered in fiscal year 2020, the last year Donald Trump was president. Additionally, agents recorded 375 encounters at the northern border with people on the terrorist screening data set, also known as the terrorist watch list, so far in this year, 2023. We're 9 months in. And 375 people came through the northern border. How many people came in through that 1.6 million? Nearly half of all 2023 northern encounters occurred on New York's border, despite the fact the state only makes up about 8% of the U.S. land border with Canada. How many gotaways are coming in? We don't have the same kind of sensors. We don't look as Canada as the same kind of threat. There's no telling how many people. 1.6 million through the southern border gotaways. How many people got away coming through the northern part? Elise Stefanik, Republican New York, says Joe Biden's far-left open border policies have caused our northern border to say an unprecedented and historic surge in illegal immigration. Meanwhile, Canada says it's experiencing an influx of individuals crossing the Canada-United States border between ports of entry, which is known as an irregular border crossing. So far, Canadian officials have recorded 30,326 irregular border crossings. That's 3.7 times more than irregular crossings than Canada saw at this point during fiscal year 2022. I find myself in agreement with Ron DeSantis. By the way, the governor of Florida joined the military after 9/11 and now serves as the governor. And he's talking to the Washington Examiner. On the 22nd anniversary of September 11th, terrorist attacks, Governor Ron DeSantis said the threat of foreign terrorism still exists on U.S. soil due to the lack of security on the southern border. Perhaps putting a spotlight on current problems surrounding illegal immigration, the Republican presidential candidate told the Washington Examiner he believes the border crisis has made us more vulnerable to terrorist attack. Quote, I think there's a good bet that somebody that's come across that southern border will commit an act of terrorism. I think the chances are quite good. I agree completely with Governor DeSantis. He noted that people from countries across the globe have been apprehended as at the U.S.-Mexico border. 9/11 was part of an immigration issue, he said. A lot of these guys should not have been in the country and overstayed visas and whatnot. Well, that's exactly what we're doing now. We are allowing people to come into this country, and we don't know a thing about them, but it's fair to say that people around the world who do not have our best interest in mind are sending people across the border, taking advantage of the chaos there. And the Biden administration is doing this for purely political reasons, but they're doing it for political reasons while putting America at risk. We are at risk. I pray to God that we don't have another kind of attack like we had on 9/11. But God forbid that we do. There's only one person who's responsible for it, and that's the current president of the United States. He will have to answer for that. It is all on him and his administration, and Mayorkas as well. And I'm sad to report, I think we are losing sight of the real dangers that come with an open southern border. This administration is putting the nation at risk, and we have forgotten, I'm afraid, the lessons of 9/11 some 22 years ago today. 20 minutes now past the hour. Let me talk about Everseal and remind you what it is. If you don't know, Everseal is it's a sealant. It can be used on exterior wood or concrete to seal it. And here's the thing: it was actually designed for industrial applications, but they figured out how to provide this permanent solution for sealing your exterior wood and concrete at a price that home and business owners can actually afford. Now, they start the process with a deep cleaning all the way down to make your wood and concrete look as new as it possibly can look. And then they use this patented seal, which will absorb all the way through the wood and the concrete to become a permanent part of your wood and concrete. And here's the big part. It will prevent any further deterioration for the next 30 to 50 years. Think about that. 30 to 50 years. How much does it cost you to seal your deck? Once a year or once every couple of years? It's a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort. What if you could do it one time and then not worry about your concrete, not worry about your wood, exterior wood surfaces? You'd be done. It'd all be done. If this sounds like something that you'd like to investigate, why don't you reach out to Steve Nelson and the team over at Everseal? There's a couple of ways to reach them. Just call this number, 1-844-EVER-USA. That's 1-844-EVER-USA. Or learn more by going to their website, ever-seal.com.
A drive-by shooting at an apartment complex in Nashville. A Tennessee man tempted fate and now faces the consequences. And MGM resorts around the nation suffering a cyber incident today. I'll have those stories and more right here, 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You know, I was talking earlier about the 1.6 million people who came across the border and the gotaways that we don't know anything about, and how frightening that is. And then I talked about how there are a great number of people who come across the border and have contact with law enforcement because they want to get the piece of paper and they want to be sent on into the country. Listen to this. Those that have had contact, we don't know anything about them either. DHS, according to justthenews.com, has limited ability to accurately track migrant post-release addresses, according to an Inspector General's report. The Inspector General at the Homeland Security Department, you know, they're supposed to be an independent watchdog on the agency. And they have done their independent work here, and it's embarrassing for the Department of Homeland Security. The U.S. Border Patrol cannot always obtain and does not always record migrant addresses. And the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement does not always validate migrant addresses prior to migrant release into the United States. DHS Inspector General's office said in their report, released on the 22nd anniversary of 9/11. You see the point they're trying to make, same point I was making a minute ago. The office said it arrived at such a conclusion based on a review of, well, nearly 1 million migrant records documented by the U.S. Border Patrol from March of 21 through August of 22. The watchdog office also found addresses for over 177,000 migrant records were either missing, invalid for delivery, or not legitimate residential locations. In addition to migrants not providing U.S. release addresses, DHS faced several challenges hindering its ability to record and validate migrant addresses as required. U.S. Border Patrol did not accurately and effectively capture valid addresses, in part due to the large number of migrants apprehended, as well as its limited coordination with ICE and its limited authority to administer compliance with address requirements. ICE also did not have adequate resources to validate and analyze migrants' post-release addresses. We know there were 1.6 million. I mean, you just want to rub your temples. This hurts so bad to read this stuff. We know that there are 1.6 million gotaways, but it's sounding like a great number of people who actually even went through the process. We don't know where they are, and they were not properly vetted. Folks, take a moment to remember the disaster that was 9/11. And think about what we're doing right now. We should be angry. We should be pounding the table. We should be marching on Washington, requiring them to do this. The Biden administration is doing this for purely political reasons. They want all of these people coming across the border to one day be voters. That's why they're doing this. But they're grabbed to get voters that when people will actually vote down the line. They can't vote now, but they're looking for a pathway for them. In a purely political pursuit, they are putting our nation at incredible risk. God, I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. And you probably are looking at this and you're thinking, no, you don't think so either. Why are we not screaming and hollering and pounding the table? Because I will tell you this, if people get angry enough, Washington will react. But we just seem to be, blissfully going along, ignoring the lessons of the past. Oh, gosh. 30 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk.
Thirty minutes after the hour of 5 o'clock, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 87 degrees in Nashville. Some showers and thunderstorms expected tomorrow. The rest of the week looking pretty clear and sunny. Forecast, latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. This just in, 2 boys were shot in a drive-by shooting at the Cumberland View Apartments this afternoon. Channel 4's Danielle Jackson with the latest on that still active scene.
Those 2 children were taken to the hospital. We're told around 3:41 this afternoon, investigators got a call of a drive-by shooting here at the Cumberland View Apartments. This was around 3:41 this afternoon. We're told 2 juveniles were hit. One was taken to Vandy and the other one was taken to Centennial Hospital. And we're told they were just innocent bystanders in the area. We're also told 3 parked vehicles were also hit by those stray bullets. Right now, police don't have any idea on any suspects. They did tell me they were planning to look at any nearby surveillance video to try to get to the bottom of this.
And those 2 boys' injuries are not expected to be life-threatening. Crime right now in Tennessee. News 2 says a Putnam County man, Levi Austin Flatt, has been indicted on 3 federal charges after videotaping himself holding what looked to be and was confirmed later a bomb. He had a wine bottle that was taped to a plastic bottle and a pipe with wires protruding out. In the video, Flatt could reportedly be heard saying, quote, "Hey, ATF, let me know if this is legal. A pound of tannerite, a pipe bomb, and a wine bottle full of diesel. Is that legal, ATF? Just let me know. Just somebody let me know." End quote. ATF did, in fact, let him know by getting a search warrant and finding him. They found multiple explosives along with extended magazines and a tactical vest. Flatt admitted to making those bombs, but said he did not want to hurt anyone. And MGM resorts around the United States being impacted by a cybersecurity incident. Alex Stone says the FBI now involved.
MGM Resorts confirms it is dealing with a cybersecurity incident. Some guests at MGM Resorts are reporting impacts from being unable to use digital keys to unlock their hotel room doors, to apps not working, and other impacts The FBI tells ABC News it's working with MGM and is providing assistance. An investigation is underway, according to MGM Resorts. The FBI started working with MGM on Sunday as a cybersecurity incident unfolded.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather upcoming. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
So how are you faring in this rough and tumble market? The experts at Beacon Capital Management understand it can be a little scary, but here's the thing. Beacon Capital Management has a plan to assess where you are and help you make any mid-course corrections that might be needed. Wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path to retirement? Beacon can provide you that reassurance. It starts with a simple phone call. The experts at Beacon will take it from there. I mean, what do you have to lose except for all the worry? Get started today simply by calling this number, 615-488-9303. That's 615-488-9303. At the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing you have a plan that meets your retirement goals. Replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path. You have all the T's crossed, the I's dotted. Again, the number, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away. Learn more at askbeaconnow.com. 36 past the hour of 5. Let's open up the phone lines at 615-737-9986. I'm going to give you a sort of the truncated version of what happened, what I went through on 9/11 in Washington, D.C. But I really want you to weigh in here as well. 615-737-9986. We all have a memory of 9/11, where you were when you heard it, where you were when you saw it, the shock and horror that you felt when you watched the images on TV. And I'd love for you, if you have a story that you'd like to share about that day and what you remember of it and what you think the lessons of 9/11 were, give us a call at 615-737-9986. And while you're getting on the line doing that, I'll just give you sort of a shorter version. I talked about it earlier, about what I went through. I was in Washington working for the Fox News channel then, and immediately got sent to Capitol Hill because there was concern about that building perhaps being under attack, like other buildings were under attack at the time. And so I went up there, and a long story short, while I was there, it was then that we heard that the Pentagon had been struck. The Capitol was evacuated. I ended up out on the lawn with other staff members and senators. I recall distinctly seeing senators standing in a circle in the parking lot outside the Capitol, and they were in prayer for the country. I'll never forget that as long as I live. I saw the jet, one of the two jets that was apparently dispatched out of Andrews Air Force Base to try to intercept flight number 93, the one that ultimately went down in Shanksville. And I saw that jet aircraft. By the way, the pilot of that aircraft didn't have any weapons on board. If they were going to take out that jet, they were going to have to basically crash into it and eject. Talk about an assignment for the day. And anyway, I saw that, and then and then we heard from people we needed to get out of there because there was a fourth aircraft inbound toward Washington, and they thought it was coming to Capitol Hill. I've always believed that the ultimate plan was to use one plane, not to hit the Pentagon, but to hit the White House. But he was coming in so fast he couldn't find the White House, and I've always believed that the Pentagon was a secondary target. He came in at about 600 miles an hour, way too fast. And so I think the Pentagon was a secondary target, and I think the original plan was to hit the White House and the Capitol. But we'll never know for sure, but that's always been my theory. I ended up covering and getting the information on the air about the fourth incoming aircraft. It took some time because in the chaos in New York, where the Twin Towers were starting to collapse, I couldn't get through to the control room, and I had really valuable information that people needed to know. And I did finally get through and reported that information. Later in the day, the powers that be reassigned me to go to the Pentagon, and I covered the events that, not the events of the attack, but after the attack. And I was there for, it's my recall, about 2 or 3 weeks, covering from that location. So it was quite the experience. I will never forget that day. I'll never forget the panic that we all felt. I'll never forget the adrenaline. Thinking back on it, actually, quite frankly, I start to get, my heart rate starts to beat, and I have sort of a reaction. And I think that many of us do from that day. Well, and I'd like to know your story. That's my story. That's a shortened version of it. Let's just go to the phones now. Monica in White House, what was your 9/11 memory?
Brian, this is Monica.
Go ahead.
We were on vacation, and my mom was cooking breakfast, and the very first plane that hit the tower, she said that was terrorist. I said, really, Mom? But our first thought was back to a year earlier on October 12th when the USS Cole was bombed.
Right.
And our cousin was one of those 17 sailors, and we felt like that was like a precursor or a warning for 911, but who knew?
You're exactly right. I think that the attack on the Cole was one. I actually covered that story, was the first to report it on Fox News once we learned about it. And, I had actually a hard time that day getting that story on the air initially because I kept saying, this is huge and you need to pay attention to this. And they finally got on board with it. But I think you're right. The Cole was the precursor. I did not see the initial video because I was on a train. It took me a while to figure out just the magnitude of this story, but there are a lot of people who saw it happen moments after it happened. Monica, thank you for the call. Jason in Smyrna. Jason, good afternoon. You're on with Brian. What is your 9/11 memory, Jason?
Well, I worked for your twice daily corporate headquarters. I was in accounting management there. And when the first tower was hit, the operators on the accounting floor kind of mentioned it. And I immediately tried to pull it up on CNN. That was at the very beginnings of the internet, and all of the news sites were just jam-packed. You couldn't pull up anything, no matter what your internet speed at the time was. So I went down and got with a bunch of the top executives. We were in a boardroom watching it on TV. And never will forget when the first tower fell.
I know.
Our regional manager started crying and bit down on the boardroom table and said a prayer. The next day, the entire corporate staff found a large American flag somewhere in the office.
Yep.
And we all got in a circle, said a prayer, and sang the Star Spangled Banner and My Country 'Tis of Thee.
It really was a time, Jason, of patriot. Our patriotism came to the surface. It took a tragedy to do it, but I mean that's indeed what happened. Yeah, I know a lot of people who have similar stories. That's a great one, Jason. Thanks for sharing it. James, out on the road. James, what is your 9/11 memory? James, give us what you remember of that day.
Well, I've got two for you. I was a senior in high school. They rolled the TVs in there that morning, and we ended up leaving early. But the other part of this is to anybody out there that thinks the Pentagon was bombed, I can assure you that there was a plane. I had some friends that were working right across the street from it and watched that plane come in and make contact with the building. It was one hell of a day, that's for sure.
Yeah, you're right, James. Thank you for that memory. I want to get some other folks in here. Jeffrey, out on the road. Hello, Jeffrey. You're on with Brian. What is your 9/11 memory, Jeffrey?
Well, hey there, Brian. I was watching Fox and Friends and getting ready for work, and I literally turned off the TV and walked out the door about 2 minutes before the first plane hit. When I got to work, everybody was like, "Oh my God, have you heard the news?" And I hadn't heard it, and as soon as I found out, I said, "I'm going back home. I don't know how things are going to be going." I lived in a small town at the time. The whole town basically, started running on groceries and gas, and gas stations ran out of gas. That night, my brother and my sister-in-law and my newborn niece came to town because 9/11 is my birthday. And my mom cooked my favorite meal, but none of us could eat. And to this day, 22 years later, I still I don't celebrate my birthday on my birthday because it just doesn't feel right.
Doesn't seem right, does it? That's
no, it doesn't. And then you talked about the patriotism. Brian, after 9/11, you couldn't buy an American flag because the stores were selling out. And everybody had a flag. And here we are 22 years later. And if you display an American flag, some people call you racist. And it's disgusting.
Listen, thank you for that. That's a great story. Andy, out on the road also. Andy, good afternoon. You're on with Brian. What's your 9/11 memory?
Hey, Brian. Two quick things. At that time, I worked in Donaldson at Two Rivers Ford, which is where the Ace Hardware is now, and we were right in the area where all the planes were coming into Nashville Airport to land. So, we constantly heard airplanes all the time, And, I just remember the strange thing was the silence when they grounded all of the planes. That was really strange. And forgive me, on the interstate. And then the other thing, I remember leaving to go home that night. There's several churches in that area, and I remember getting in my vehicle to go home, and every single church that I passed was open, and the parking lots were full. And I'll never forget that.
Talking about the airplane, in Washington, you got National Airport right there, not far from the Pentagon. And there are always, constantly in Washington, D.C., a constant roar. If you're downtown Washington, there's always a jet that's flying down the Potomac River or up the Potomac River, depending on which way the wind blows. And it is their flight path. And so there is always, in the backdrop of Washington, always the constant sound of jets arriving and taking off. And it was spooky. When I got sent over to the Pentagon, the town by that time was completely vacant. Everybody had been sent home. And there was silence. No jets. It was odd. It was very strange. I remember that very distinctly. How about Pam in Nashville? Pam, do you have a memory from 9/11 you'd like to share with us? Hello, Pam.
Yes, hello. How are you?
Go ahead.
Thank you for letting me share for a minute. Yes, I was in college for working on my second degree, and I just remember when I saw the first images coming from New York, I just kept thinking this couldn't happen because I was just there a couple of months prior to move my mom down from there because she was living there, and she was a nurse, and so I just kept thinking this is I was just in shock, and I just kept thinking that it doesn't happen here, it just doesn't happen here, and I just remember that being there just months prior and looking up at those towers, that once the realization hit in, that I'm thinking there are people who are never coming home.
That's right.
The people that were probably in those offices that I looked up at just a couple of months prior while I was helping my mom move down, that they're no longer going to be here. And I think one of the lessons that I took away from that is that we are only here for a short, briefest of moments of time. And while we are here to do the most kindest acts that you can think of, make sure that you are kind to your fellow human beings. Never miss the opportunity to say, I love you, because the next moment could be literally your last. And so that was my memory.
Pam, thank you. And, I do remember how really, truly sweet people were to one another. It's all like we were all in shock. And we were, helpful, reaching out. We weren't Republicans and we weren't Democrats. We were just Americans immediately after that attack. And all we wanted to do was, try to find out what happened and then figure out how we were going to make it right. And you're right. We never know when our next. Nobody in that tower went to work that day thinking it was going to be their last. It really was quite something. Really, I can't tell you how impressed I am with some of these phone calls and the thoughts. Very, very lovely remembrances, and it takes us back to that time. And for young people who were not around then or too young to remember, I hope that you will take some time today to study what happened on 9/11. 50 minutes now past the hour. Let me tell you about the Wellness Institute of Nashville and Dr. Kevin Mitchell. This is very important to Dr. Kevin Mitchell, and it's a way you can show on this 9/11 your patriotism through the flying of our grand old flag. The Wellness Institute of Nashville is putting flags back into our cities and towns with something called Patriot Way Project, and already the Wellness Institute is responsible for having flown over 75 brand new flags. Now, you can donate and be a part of this by going to patriotwayproject.com or just come out to the Wellness Institute, take a look at their space-age high-tech facility, and you can do it there. You want to know that when you visit their facility for spinal or knee treatments, they are giving back to our community. So if and when you have bulging or herniated discs, sciatica, tingling, or numbness of the arms or legs, weakness, spinal stenosis, fatigue, and spinal back or neck pain, knee pain, whatever it is, just come and see them, bring those MRIs, take them time to review you, and we'll give you an accurate and long-term solution. So come and see them today. Tell your friends, family, and loved ones about the Patriot Way Project at patriotwayproject.com. And remember, the Wellness of Institute of Nashville, 615-246-5009. Learn more at painisbad.com.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things I like to do for investors is educate them, because the more educated I believe that you are as an investor, the more peace of mind you have, the less you worry, and the more successful you're likely to be as an investor. So here goes another education. If we look at a lot of these investment portfolios, like these target date funds out there or portfolios put together by big mutual fund companies, they'll often use something called a total market fund. And you think, wow, I own the whole market in one mutual fund. Matter of fact, there's a really popular video out there on YouTube that says you can get by with just a couple mutual funds and you can be totally diversified. Nothing could be further from the truth. What's going on here is this. One of the things we know as an investor is that you have small companies out there and you have large companies out there. You have growth companies and you have value companies. I taught this in a previous video. We expect more return from small companies than we do large because they have to pay more to use your money historically. Value companies have to pay more to use your money historically as well. Now, what happens with total market funds is they weight based on the size of the company. Well, that would mean that a bigger company would represent more of the portfolio. So graphically, it would look something like this. The fund would look like this. That there's a ton of money in really big companies and there's almost no money in really small companies in those portfolios. So it's not really diversified. Do they own them? Yeah, they own them, but they almost have no money in them. So when these do really well, you're not really getting the benefit from it. What we would be better served doing is investing in various areas of the market and holding different types of funds to be more balanced between these areas. That's what academic research shows us, is if we can hold these areas more separately, then we end up with a better risk-return experience. So this is one of the things that we teach people. We like for you to understand this because the more you understand it, the less you're pulled astray from the investing industry that's typically all about selling you things. Yeah, total market fund, it sounds really good. Not necessarily so great in practice. Now, if you want to find out a little bit more and learn more about investing so that you're a more educated investor, why don't you take us up on a free 15-minute phone call? Go to paulwinkler.com. It's paulwinkler.com. You can set up one in any of our offices, our 10 offices around the Nashville area. There's one near you, most likely. Set that up. Come see us. We love to educate investors. I think you'll be happy you did.
Something awesome is coming to Genesis Diamonds next weekend, September 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. A 3-day designer engagement ring event showcasing the world's two top brands in bridal jewelry, Tacori and Viraggio. Tacori from California, Viraggio from New York, both flying in their entire lines, including all the new rings for this special event. You can explore hundreds of exquisite American-made designer rings, plus Genesis will have special incentives, zero-interest financing, and up to $5,000 in instant savings. In addition, Genesis has expanded selection of GIA-certified diamonds for this 3-day event, all shapes, all sizes, rock-bottom prices. Every Tacori ring, handcrafted by master artisans with exceptional quality. Every Viraggio ring, made by hand with unmatched attention to detail. These are brands that other jewelers only wish they could offer, but at Genesis, they have the entire Tacori and Viraggio collection, and they'll all be on display next weekend. Don't miss the bridal jewelry event of the year, September 22nd, 23rd, and 24th at Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills, and Cool Springs.
Six o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 85 degrees, a nice sunny day on Music Row. Some showers and thunderstorms possible tomorrow, but we should resume this nice sunny weather Wednesday and so on this week. Weather forecast, latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. President Biden traveled to Alaska today to mark the 22nd anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks. Speaking in Anchorage, Mr. Biden said he understands the lingering pain felt by many 9/11 families.
While every year we mark this hallowed day, it's never easy. To anyone here or anyone across the country who's grieving a lost child, parent, spouse, sibling, friend, or coworker, to all those who still bear the wounds from the searing September morning, I know how hard it is.
President Biden's first wife and 13-month-old daughter were killed in a car crash the week before Christmas in 1972. Right now in Kentucky, a Tennessee man is in custody after a fight with police, which police said led to much more.
Police in Whitesburg were called to the parking lot of a food city yesterday afternoon, where two drivers, including Billy Coleman of Bluff City, Tennessee, were fighting on the ground and had to be pepper sprayed. Once everything settled down, police say they learned Coleman and his wife were living in their van with 35 dogs. It turns out Coleman's wife had gone 2 weeks without food, and the man her husband was fighting was trying to rescue her. Coleman is facing assault, criminal mischief, disorderly conduct, and cruelty to animals charges, which are misdemeanors, but felony charges are pending. Meanwhile, an animal rescue group was called out to help with the dogs. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Crime right now here in Tennessee. News 2 reports that a Putnam County man, Levi Austin Flatt, has been indicted on 3 federal charges after videotaping himself holding what looked to be, and has now been confirmed by officials, a bomb. He had a wine bottle that was taped to a plastic bottle and a pipe with wires protruding out of it. And in this video, Flatt could reportedly be heard saying, quote, "Hey, ATF, let me know if this is legal. A pound of tannerite, a pipe bomb, and a wine bottle full of diesel. Oh, is that legal, ATF? Just let me know about this. Somebody let me know," end quote. And ATF did, in fact, let him know. They got a search warrant. They found Flatt. They found multiple explosives along with extended magazines and a tactical vest. Flatt admitted to making those bombs, but said he did not want to hurt anyone. And then a step forward now in the process of making new COVID vaccines available to Americans. Karen Travers gives us the latest.
The FDA on Monday gave the green light to the updated COVID booster vaccine that's formulated against the current Omicron subvariants. The next step is for approval by the CDC, which is expected in the coming days. Shots would then be available to Americans this week, as soon as they're delivered to pharmacies and healthcare providers. The FDA authorized the shot for ages 6 months and older. According to recent data, it appears the updated booster shots will work well against all currently circulating subvariants and will especially protect against severe disease and death, in particular for people who are elderly or immune compromised.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, good evening, everyone. 7 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock, the fourth and final hour on this Monday. We're glad that you're with us here. We'll get you home safely. I got a lot of stuff to share this hour. A lot of stuff that we want to go through with regard to our president. And again, a just an unbelievably laughable appearance on the stage in Vietnam as he's coming back from the G20 summit. I'll get to that in a moment. Allow me very quickly to get this in. All day today, we're supporting the Monroe Carroll Jr. Children's Hospital as they team up with the Nashville Soccer Club to fight kids' cancer. You can bid on unique experiences like a live broadcast featuring your favorite WTN host from your business and VIP packages to our next live event on WTN. We do a lot of them. Plus an incredible experience featuring the Nashville Soccer Club and so much more. Your bids will support Monroe Carroll Jr. Children's Hospital at Vanderbilt, the #1 pediatric hospital in Tennessee and in the Southeast. You can text KICK CANCER to 615-488-4401 or find the link at 997WTN.com. All right, thank you for that, and I hope that you'll take advantage of it. Listen, I want to take a moment to talk about our president and what a buffoon he is. Again, he has proved it on the world stage, embarrassing himself and America in Vietnam. He's on the way back from the G20. He makes a stop in Vietnam, and there was a moment where he came out to answer questions, and it just spiraled right down the toilet. I mean, it really went south quick. He started out talking about a song that is not a song. He's talking about being in Vietnam, and he says, remember that song, Good Morning Vietnam? Well, it's not a song. It was a movie.
This around the world in 5 days is interesting. Well, there's that, one of my staff members said, the famous song, Good Morning Vietnam, or Good Evening Vietnam, and Good Morning Back in America.
It was a joke, and nobody laughed because everybody's going, song? What's he talking about? Song? I mean, everybody sort of gasped. Now, then he pulled out a list of names from a 3x5 card that had been given to him by staff and let everybody know that he's really not in charge. He's just following. He's not the leader of the free world. He's just following the staff's orders.
And let's see. I'm just following my orders here.
He's lost. He can't remember where he is.
Staff, if anybody hasn't spoken, I ain't calling on you. I'm calling, like I said, they have 5 questions. Anita, VOA.
Yeah, so he turned to his staff to say, who have I forgotten? Because he couldn't find the card. He's sitting there at the podium, and he lost the card, and he got lost, and he doesn't know who he's supposed to call on next. So they have to shout it to him. And then he calls on, for another softball question. There have been many times where the president has used the term lying dog-faced pony soldier. He uses it all the time. And the lying dog-faced pony soldier made an appearance in Vietnam as well. And he sort of tries to explain the whole thing and why he uses that term. But I don't know. To me, it seems like he, number one, has misrepresented the movie that it comes from, and he just got lost.
My brother loves having those famous lines from movies that he always quotes. And one of them is there's a movie about John Wayne. He's an Indian scout. And we're trying to get, I think it was Apache, one of the great tribes of America, back on the reservation. And he's standing with the Union, so we're all on their horses and their saddles. And there's 3 or 4 Indians in headdresses, and the Union soldiers. And the Union soldiers basically saying, Indians, come with me, we'll take care of you, everything will be good. And the Indian looks at John Wayne and points to the Union soldier and says, he's a lying dog-faced pony soldier. Well, there's a lot of lying dog-faced pony soldiers out there about global warming, but not anymore. all of a sudden, I realized it's a problem. And there's nothing like seeing the light.
It's a long way to go. I mean, but you've got the another example. I mean, he uses this example all the time, doesn't he?
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
Oh dear Lord! But wait, it gets better. It gets worse. He is no doubt jet lagged and exhausted, and he's searching for words. He cannot find words. Listen to the struggle, and then he blurts out, "I really just want to go to bed," I think is what he says. Listen to this.
Nobody likes having celebrated international meetings.
Well, first of all, he's struggling for every word, and he seems to be under some kind of duress.
If you don't know what you want at the meeting, if you don't have a game plan, he may have a game plan. He just hasn't shared it with me. But I tell you what, I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to bed.
I mean, just in the middle, appropriate of nothing, he starts out with this whole thing about,
but I'm going to go to bed.
I got to go to bed. Well, I mean, they should have called it off right there.
But I'm going to go to bed.
And just send him to bed, because it got worse after that. Here is how the thing ended. I cannot begin to tell you how bizarre this is. He's mumbling, he's stumbling, and finally, almost in an act of mercy, Karine Jean-Pierre steps up and just closes the thing. Says, no, we're done here. Thank you very much. They turn off his microphone, and then they start playing soft jazz. You think I'm making this up, but I'm not. And then he walks away from the microphone, and then somebody asks him a question that he wants to answer. He walks back to the microphone, and with the soft jazz still playing, his microphone is off, but then they turned it on halfway through, and then the jazz music continues until he exits the room. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
We talked about at the conference overall. We talked about stability. We talked about making sure that the third world, the southern hemisphere had access to change it, had access. It wasn't confrontational at all. He came up to me and said,
Thank you, everybody. This ends the press conference. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are you bringing U.S. strategic interests above the rights here in Vietnam?
I've raised it with every person I've met with.
Mr. President,
are you worried about your son being indicted, Mr. President?
And then the smooth jazz just keeps on playing. Shoo-be-doo-be-doo. I think the members of the press corps started dancing one with the other, and then it seemed like the appropriate thing to do. So, I mean, this needs to be dissected a little bit. So he's stumbling and he's bumbling. He can't remember words. And then Karine just steps in right here.
Had access to change it, had access. It wasn't confrontational at all. He came up to me and said,
Thank you, everybody. This ends the press conference. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I mean, she realized this was a disaster, and she wanted to mercifully end it. Biden doesn't get the idea that he needs to get off the stage, and actually he walks back to the stage while the music is playing to sort of answer a question.
I've raised it with every person I've met with.
And then he walks away again, and they just keep playing the soft jazz. Oh my gosh. What a mess. What a mess it was. Our president can't put together a sentence. He doesn't seem to know where he is. Can't get his way through a softball press conference and where all the questions have been pre-screened. Loses his list. Has to be, I mean, it's almost like the old thing. They took the hook and pulled him off stage.
Give me a
Karine.
break.
Like Karine, just saying, no, we need to end this.
Thank you, everybody. This ends the press conference. Thanks,
we're
everyone.
done. Get him off there quick. This is the man who is leading our country.
I did what I came to do.
Well, if you came to embarrass us, you did a great job. This is the man who is representing America on the world stage. This is the man who is unable to put together a sentence, doesn't seem to know the difference between the third world and the southern hemisphere. This is a man who literally doesn't have a clue as to what words are going to come next. I mean, this part right here, it's scary. Listen to it.
Nobody
Pause.
likes
Pause.
having
Pause.
celebrated
Pause.
international meetings
Pause.
if you don't know what you want.
I mean, he seems to be grasping for words, simple words. And this is the man that the Democrats want to represent them in the White House for the next 4 years, for a second term. Listen, I listen to this and I say, is this the moment where the Democrats realize they simply have to do something about Joe Biden and take him out? I mean, take him out and say, I'm sorry, Mr. President, you cannot be the nominee. You simply are not up to the task. If you're a Democrat and you hear this press conference and you're worried about can Joe Biden get reelected, you've got to be worried. You've got to be worried. Now, it was on 9/11, and he wasn't anywhere near any of the things that have to do with 9/11. He was in Vietnam. The first time a president has not been there in 22 years, has not been at Ground Zero or Shanksville or the Pentagon, lay a wreath, do nothing. He sent the vice president to Ground Zero. The vice president's husband was sent to the Shanksville, and Pentagon officials handled the duties over at the Pentagon, but he was flying back from Vietnam. He did stop at Elmendorf Air Force Base in Alaska for a refueling. That's where they stopped there to get fuel for Air Force One. And they cobbled something together where he made comments about 9/11. Listen to this.
Ground Zero in New York. And I remember standing there the next day and looking at the building. I felt like I was looking through the gates of hell. It looked so devastating because from where you could stand.
He was not at Ground Zero the day after 9/11. We know where he was. They've got pictures of him at a committee hearing on Capitol Hill. And what was it, Chris? He actually went maybe 2 weeks later?
Yeah, it was part of a Senate delegation on September 20th.
Wow. I fear. Can you imagine this man being capable of handling a 9/11? I simply cannot. I don't think we have a president. I think we have a staff running things, and they keep trotting him out, and he keeps embarrassing America. I don't know how it's going to end, but I tell you, I still don't think that Joe Biden's going to be the nominee. And I fear, in the meantime, that if we do, God forbid, have another attack against the mainland, which is entirely possible given the southern border policies of this administration, he's not up to it. Simply not up to it. 21 minutes now past the hour. All right, listen, I talk about the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Here's the number, 615-246-5009. But let me share something very important to Dr. Kevin Mitchell. It's a way to show your patriotism through the flying of our grand old flag. The Wellness Institute of Nashville is putting American flags back in our cities and town. It's called the Patriot Way Project, and already the Wellness Institute is responsible for having flown over 75 brand new flags. You can donate at patriotwayproject.com, or just make a trip out to the Wellness Institute of Nashville in Mount Juliet. Take a look at their space-age high-tech spinal facility, and you can make a donation there. They want you to know that when you visit their facility for spinal or knee treatments, they are giving back to the community. So If you have bulging or herniated discs, sciatica, tingling, numbness of the arms or legs or weakness, spinal stenosis, fatigue, spinal back or neck pain, knee pain, meniscus thinning, all of these things are things that they can potentially help you with at the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Take the time to review your findings with Dr. Kevin Mitchell. He'll set up a therapy plan for you to see if he can make you better. I think you'll be very well pleased with how you come out there. And come and see them today. And in the meantime, tell your friends and family and loved ones about the Patriot Way Project, patriotwayproject.com. That's the Wellness Institute of Nashville, 615-246-5009. Learn more at painisbad.com. It is 26 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson. I'm your friend and radio buddy, and you're listening to The Drive until about 7 o'clock, and then we'll hand it over after the news to Mark Levin. The investigation into Hunter Biden and, by extension, Joe Biden will continue on Capitol Hill. Some are concerned about it. Here's this. Republican South Carolina Representative Nancy Mace warned fellow House Republicans they will walk the plank over a potential impeachment of President Joe Biden. She was speaking on Sunday Morning Futures with Maria Bartiromo. We need more subpoenas. I want the bookkeeper. I want Shokin. I want Hunter. I want everybody who was a witness. Congresswoman, that works for you and James Comer and all of the other members who've been doing on the Oversight Committee. Is an actual impeachment inquiry necessary? Do you get any additional powers with the formal impeachment inquiry? Would it be better to forge ahead with what you've been doing on oversight? Because it's essentially acting as an impeachment inquiry in and of itself, is it not? It is in a way. An impeachment inquiry does put at risk certain seats in certain states. She's thinking politically. We're making our members who are in those districts walk the plank if we force them down an impeachment vote, which is what I've been saying, no matter what the evidence shows, show all of it. Because the things that I have seen in the SARS report would blow your mind, whether you're Republican or Democrat. So we have to show the bank records that back that up. We need witnesses to come down. We need whistleblowers. We need all the people we know that what actually happened come before the House, because the American people deserve nothing less than the truth, and they can decide for themselves what should happen. I mean, she's speaking as if you go to impeachment, you really are, she says, putting some seats, some moderate Republican seats at risk. I don't think so. I think she's wrong. I think Representative Byron Donalds has it right.
These accounts that were set up originally, the core of the tax evasion that Hunter Biden did do to the tunes of millions of dollars. The accounts that were set up were when Joe Biden was vice president of the United States. Joe Biden was in business meetings with Hunter's clients. Joe Biden was on the phone. Now we find out that there's 5,400 emails that the National Archives has had this entire time, where Joe Biden is using fake names in these emails, fake email accounts, so he can communicate with business partners on the side. All the while, Joe Biden has consistently said he never knew anything about what Hunter was doing. Then they had to change the story to say he never benefited from what Hunter was doing. But there is a text message from Hunter Biden to his daughter saying that at least you don't have to pay half of your salary to me the way I have to do it to my father. This is a joke. Yeah. It is public corruption. And I believe that when we have these emails, it's going to demonstrate what we all know, which is Hunter Biden and Joe Biden have been in cahoots the entire time.
The impeachment inquiry is going to happen. I think the votes are there for it, but that is not an impeachment. It simply supercharges the House and their ability to get information, to compel testimony, to get documents that they otherwise cannot have. It would be the peak of the House's ability to do those kind of things and conduct such an investigation. If they find, the smoking gun, then the impeachment is basically a process not unlike a district attorney and a grand jury handing up an indictment, in this case not to a court but to the Senate, which would then carry out a impeachment trial. If you have really compelling stuff that the Democrats can't explain away, then they are going to be hard-pressed to carry out a sort of a show trial that doesn't really get at all of the facts. It's going to be interesting to see how far this goes, but I'm beginning to wonder if, after the performance of Vietnam and other bizarre performances by this president, whether the Democrats might actually allow this process in the Senate to go forward, and then that's the way that they get another candidate. Because I'm telling you, Joe Biden's not up to the task, and the evidence that is being developed is pretty damning. 31 past the hour now. Let's talk about Stoltzco.com. If you're in the market for a pole barn, the two brothers that run Stoltzco are the two guys you need to talk to. Exceptional quality, craftsmanship, and fair prices. They can build you a new pole barn to your specifications with your needs in mind. That's the difference, the Stoltzco difference. You can use pole barns for all kinds of things. It can function as a classic tool or work barn, a garage, or even a place to live. Flexibility is the key. They combine the classic post-frame barn look with the reliability of modern materials and techniques to give you a finished barn that will stand the test of time. They don't scrimp on quality. They don't cut corners. They believe their customers deserve only the best. Listen, you need to take a moment to go to their website, Stoltzco.com. Stoltzco.com, Stoltzco.com, and take a look at some of the examples of what they've done. I think you'll understand this is not your father's or your grandfather's pole barn. Very different, very modern, but really cool. 615-622-5992, or learn more at Stoltzco.com. That's Stoltzco.com. Time for a crazy Democrat update. I mean, they're entertaining, but scary, aren't they? It never ends with these folks. All right, I want to tell you a story, as we often do here on The Drive, about EVs and how we're just not ready. And despite the best efforts of the Biden administration, they're trying to shove these EVs down our throats. And everybody who tries to do this runs into some kind of really incredible problem. So let me tell you about the energy elf. I mean, well, she's not really an elf. I mean, her name is Jennifer Granholm, but she has pixie cut and sort of elfish ears. And I don't know, every time I see her, I say, she looks like a little elf. She's the energy elf. She also is the Secretary of Energy. Knows nothing about energy, by the way. But she's trying to push this idea that the Biden administration is putting forward, that we all need to be in electric cars. We need to be in electric cars. They're the wave of the future. And so, to demonstrate how easy this is, she decides to make a a road trip with a bunch of energy completely EV cars from North Carolina to Memphis. Is that right? No. Is that right? Yeah, Memphis. I gotta make sure I got that right. Her advance team, it was Tennessee, one way or the other. So she's making this trip, and she's got a fleet of electric vehicles, North Carolina to Memphis, Tennessee, with town hall events along the way. Now, she has an advanced staff that is, as you might expect, working ahead of her to make sure that when she arrives in a place, everything is prepared, all the wrinkles are smoothed out. They're driving, by the way, gasoline cars. They're driving regular old gas cars. So they're driving ahead, and they get to a place where it's time to charge just outside of Augusta, Grovetown, a suburb of Augusta. And her advance team, who arrived there in their gasoline-powered cars, realized that when the secretary arrives, remember, they're miles ahead of her, that there are not going to be enough plugs to go around to charge up all the electric vehicles. One of the station's 4 chargers was broken, not working. The others were occupied. So, in order to protect the Secretary of Energy from being embarrassed when she gets there, not having a place to charge, she takes her non-electric vehicle that she's driving and puts it in the charger stall so that when the secretary arrives, she'll move her car out of the way and the secretary moves right in and gets it charged. So the problem is that on a hot, sweltering day, she boxed out a family, had a baby in the vehicle, and they were pretty, as you imagine, pretty hacked off to find out that that there was a gasoline car sitting in a charger, and they were being blocked out from being able to charge their vehicle and go on their merry way. So they get so irritated about it, and you know what they do? They call the police. They called the police on the Secretary of Energy and the staff, and so the sheriff's office comes out, said, we can't do anything. We don't know. There's no law for that would prevent us from doing anything about a non-EV vehicle sitting in a charging station in Georgia. So the Energy Department staff scrambled to smooth over the situation, sending other vehicles to slower charges until both the frustrated family and the secretary had room to charge on the quick charger. Now this is unbelievable, and it's just an example of how everybody, the president and CEO of Ford tried to do this, going from California to Las Vegas, ran into the same kind of problems. Everybody who tries to do it, remember we told you that story? He was coming down from Canada to Chicago, and he ended up just having to park his electric truck because it kept running out of juice and he couldn't find charging stations. So he parked his truck and rented a gasoline truck to finish his trip on into Chicago. It happens everywhere. Secretary of Energy booted the family with a baby so they could use their electric vehicle charger and she could go on her merry way. That's an example of why we're not ready for electric vehicles. Number one, we don't have the charging. Number one, those vehicles are not ready. And number two, leave us alone and don't try to shove this stuff down our throats. If there is a market for it, the market will take care of all of this. The problem is there's no market for it. All of the major car companies, I can guarantee you, in the boardrooms of GM and Ford and a lot of other, and Toyota for one, they're now stopping and they're rethinking, do we have a market for all of these electric cars that we're planning to build? And I think they're rapidly finding out that that's not the solution. The CEO of Ford has said maybe what we need to do is build more hybrids. That's a solution that really seems to work. You never get stuck somewhere if you have a few gallons of gas in your tank, which runs a generator that then runs all the electric motors in your electric car. That's what a hybrid is. So, again, the crazy Democrats trying to shove this stuff down our throats. Another crazy Democrat is the governor of New Mexico, who has just ordered a temporary gun ban in the state of New Mexico in Albuquerque and surrounding Bernalillo County. not a very enchanting action in the land of enchantment. And she says, she's asked, are you upholding your oath? She says, there's no constitutional right, in my view, including my oath, is intended to be absolute. Grisham cited restrictions on free speech, an example of how the rights can be curtailed in an emergency situation. However, she's not finding many people who want to help her out with that. For number one, understand this, she has declared a public health emergency, and that's her justification for saying you can't have a concealed weapon in Albuquerque, you can't have a concealed carry or an open carry in Albuquerque. We're not going to allow it in Albuquerque or surrounding Bernalillo County. And she's saying because we have a public health emergency. She's trying to make the case that her public health emergency trumps a constitutional amendment, the Second Amendment. I mean, everybody's running for cover on this. The Albuquerque Police Department said, well, that's the governor. I'm responsible for coverage here in Albuquerque. And if the governor wants this, she'll have to use the state patrol to do it because I'm not going to put my officers in that whole mess. I'm not going to have my officers enforce this public health emergency. The sheriff said simply, we're not going to play along with this because we believe it may be unconstitutional. And people who have gone through the process, law-abiding citizens who have concealed carry permits, who obey the law, have done nothing wrong, are being asked to put away their weapons. You know the bad guys are not going to put away their weapons. They're just simply not going to do it. What a bonehead. I was just in Albuquerque not long ago, was there shortly for a few days of vacation. One of the things that I saw is we had to go to a big box store because we needed a few things that we didn't have. Walk into this big box store in Albuquerque, and at the front, I'd never seen this before. There were what looked like SWAT team members at the front door in SWAT gear with SWAT kind of weapons. I mean, I don't know what they were, but they were big old, the kind of weaponry you would expect the SWAT team to be carrying. And they were security at it was a Target store. What does that tell you? It tells you that the problem in Albuquerque is crime. And that a store had to hire people who were in paramilitary gear to protect their store suggests to you that the law-abiding citizens who have concealed carry permits and who are obeying the law are not the problem. The problem in Albuquerque and Bernalillo County and in the state of New Mexico is they're not prosecuting the bad people and taking the bad people off the street, which is the case in many Democrat cities, Democrat-controlled cities and states. Fix that problem, leave the law-abiding people alone. And by the way, citizens in Albuquerque who have concealed carry permits or sometimes open carry have simply said they're going to ignore the governor's law and her pronouncement that you cannot carry for the next 30 days. She knows, she's saying, it's a stunt is what it is, because she doesn't have, by the time anybody challenged it, the 30 days would be up and the point would be moot. So a lot of people are saying, we'll take our chances with a jury of 12 rather than be carried out by 6, which is the right way to do that. Just a few of the things going on with those crazy Democrats. It is now 48 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing so you'll know how much it will cost before the care is delivered. Smart Care plans start at $69 a month. You get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the entire family, even newborns, they offer family plans as well. Now, you marry that with a high deductible insurance plan that you may have, and it could save you and your family hundreds of dollars. At Grace Point, we take our time with each patient. They see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible. It is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider by Toast of Music City year after year after year. And Grace Point knows that there are seasonal allergies that people are contending with. They offer allergy testing and treatment so you can get back out and enjoy the great outdoors. Grace Point Healthcare is on Main Street in Franklin. Call this number, 599-6868, to schedule a visit.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things I like to do for investors is educate them, because the more educated I believe that you are as an investor, the more peace of mind you have, the less you worry, and the more successful you're likely to be as an investor. So here goes another education. If we look at a lot of these investment portfolios, like these target date funds out there or portfolios put together by big mutual fund companies, they'll often use something called a total market fund. And you think, wow, I own the whole market in one mutual fund. Matter of fact, there's a really popular video out there on YouTube that says you can get by with just a couple mutual funds and you can be totally diversified. Nothing could be further from the truth. What's going on here is this. One of the things we know as an investor is that you have small companies out there and you have large companies out there. You have growth companies and you have value companies. I taught this in a previous video. We expect more return from small companies than we do large because they have to pay more to use your money historically. Value companies have to pay more to use your money historically as well. Now, what happens with total market funds is they weight based on the size of the company. Well, that would mean that a bigger company would represent more of the portfolio. So graphically, it would look something like this. The fund would look like this. That there's a ton of money in really big companies and there's almost no money in really small companies in those portfolios. So it's not really diversified. Do they own them? Yeah, they own them, but they almost have no money in them. So when these do really well, you're not really getting the benefit from it. What we would be better served doing is investing in various areas of the market and holding different types of funds to be more balanced between these areas. That's what academic research shows us, is if we can hold these areas more separately, then we end up with a better risk-return experience. So this is one of the things that we teach people. We like for you to understand this because the more you understand it, the less you're pulled astray from the investing industry that's typically all about selling you things. Yeah, total market fund, it sounds really good. Not necessarily so great in practice. Now, if you want to find out a little bit more and learn more about investing so that you're a more educated investor, why don't you take us up on a free 15-minute phone call. Go to paulwinkler.com. It's paulwinkler.com. You can set up one in any of our offices, our 10 offices around the Nashville area. There's one near you, most likely. Set that up. Come see us. We love to educate investors. I think you'll be happy you did.
It is 55 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Listen, I want to ask your support on something that we're doing here at the radio station. I think it's a good cause. All day today, we're supporting the Monroe Carroll Jr. Children's Hospital as they team up with the Nashville Soccer Club to fight kids' cancer. You can bid on unique experiences like a live broadcast featuring your favorite WTN host from your business or VIP packages to our next live WTN event. Plus, an incredible experience featuring the Nashville Soccer Club and so much more. Now, your bids will support Monroe Carroll Jr.'s Children's Hospital at Vanderbilt, which, if you don't know, is the #1 pediatric hospital in Tennessee and, in fact, in the entire Southwest. Very, very simple process. You can text Kick Cancer to 615-488-4401. That's 615-488-4401. 4401. Or perhaps the easier way to do it is simply go to our WTN website. That's 997WTN.com, 997WTN.com, and you'll find a link. I hope you'll participate in this, and we hope that you will, make a good call there. It is 56 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Let me talk to you about United Structural Systems. What a company they are. They've been around here for about 25 years. You know, some of the people that came to work then are still working at USS. It's a great company with great people, really reliable people, and people you can trust. Honestly, listen to this. Don't take my word for it. Jerry wrote this. This is my best crew I've ever worked on, had to ever do work on my house. Best I've ever seen. Very professional. They did an excellent job. Constance said, excellent experience. The entire crew was professional and knowledgeable about their services and put me at ease during the entire process. One more. The crew that worked on our house has been top notch. I appreciate the integrity, the speed of feedback, the quality of work provided by all who have worked with us. I mean, that's what you need, right? You need a company. So listen, if you have foundation issues, waterproofing issues, just call USS, serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Northern Alabama, online at USSTN.com.